Chapter 2542. Lu Ming immediately set up a formation at the peak of the Dragon Emperor Peak. He sat down with his legs crossed and began his attempt to rank up to the Heaven Emperor realm. That being said, it was not easy to rank up to the Heaven Emperor realm. He had to adjust his condition to the best of his ability and strengthen the battle character technique before he could attempt the breakthrough. Lu Ming immersed himself in his cultivation. Demon God Realm, Sacred Mountain. A terrifying force burst out from the peak of the sacred mountain all of a sudden. An imperious aura lingered in the air as a figure appeared in the sky. The figure was none other than the sacred ancestor of the non-human tribes. Greetings, sacred ancestor. The emperors of the non-human tribes bowed respectfully. Meanwhile, the non-human tribes cultivating on the sacred mountain were startled too. They woke up from their seclusion and flew out of the sacred mountain to pay their respects to the sacred ancestor. Lu Ming is a great variable. We can't wait any longer. I've almost recovered. It's time to raise the heaven realm to the ground. The sacred ancestor of the non-human tribe said, "We're willing to die for the sacred ancestor." The non-human tribes bowed respectfully. "Gather the experts of our tribe and march out. We'll raise the heaven realm to the ground." The sacred ancestor of the non-human tribes gave the order. Acknowledged. The emperors of the non-human tribes acknowledged the order and left the place. Sha'Xian, even though you haven't fully recovered, you already possess the strength of the martial god realm. We can't wait any longer. That kid Lu Ming must be eliminated. The sacred ancestor of the non-human tribes murmured. The sacred ancestor of the non-human tribes was utterly shocked after the battle at the Cage of Eternity. Lu Ming's performance had exceeded his expectations. He had long recognized that Lu Ming had mastered the Tao of Ruler. Only a few peerless geniuses were able to master the Tao of Ruler even in the outer world. He was already shocked that Lu Ming had mastered the Tao of Ruler. However, the strength that Lu Ming had displayed was even more terrifying, making him feel uneasy. Initially, he wanted to wait for Saint Ancestor Sha'Xian to fully recover before attacking the Heaven Realm. However, he could not afford to wait any longer. Who knew how strong Lu Ming's cultivation would be if he waited any longer? The entire demon god realm began to stir. Countless experts awoke from their seclusion and gathered towards the 10 royal cities. The mutated beast stepped into the air, roaring like thunder. One by one, the experts whizzed past. Countless experts had gathered in the 10 king cities of the non-human kind, forming huge armies. In the evil god race, in the royal city of the number 1 royal clan, outside an underground secret room, the king of the number 1 royal clan waited respectfully. Kacha! The door to the secret room opened, and a slightly older member of the evil god race walked out. Son greets father. The king of the first royal family immediately bowed respectfully. This old man from the evil god race was the previous king of the first royal race. He was a veteran demigod and had been in seclusion ever since the ancient war. Are we finally going to launch a general attack on the heaven realm? The old king said in a low voice, his eyes flickering with a cold light. Not only did the number 1 royal family have such a person, but the other royal families also had such a person. They were all old kings who had retired, all of them incomparably terrifying figures. Right now, they all came out of seclusion. In a desolate place in the evil god realm, there was an abyss here. Looking from above, it was pitch black and one couldn't see what was at the bottom of the abyss. This was a famous forbidden area in the evil god realm. Normally, no one dared to step into it. At the bottom of the abyss, there were many members of the evil god race sitting cross-legged. The number was very shocking. There were a total of 100,000 of them. These members of the evil god race had been sitting here for who knew how many years, as if they had turned into stone statues. There were all kinds of races among these evil god race. There were ordinary members of the evil god race, nobles of the evil god race, and even royalty. At this moment, some of them suddenly opened their eyes. Bright light burst forth from their eyes, and an incomparably cold killing intent spread out. Swoosh! Swoosh! Following that, the other members of the evil god race also opened their eyes. Powerful auras soared into the sky and finally gathered together, causing the sky and earth to change color. When the war begins, the heaven realm will be destroyed. Kill, kill, kill. Roars came from the abyss. Then 100,000 members of the evil god race flew out of the abyss. This was an incomparably terrifying army. It was called the Sky-Shattering Army. Anyone who had experienced the ancient war would know how terrifying this army was. Back then, countless experts from the heaven realm had died under this army. The evil god race had turned out in full force, and there were countless experts. In the lair of Zulong, where the ancestral dragon was cultivating in seclusion, an earth-shattering dragon roar suddenly sounded. Vast dragon might spread out and covered the entire lair of Zulong. Roar! A true dragon flew out. It was huge and boundless, circling above the lair of Zulong. It was the ancestral dragon himself. He had already sensed everything about the evil god race and had come out of seclusion in advance. In the lair of Zulong, countless experts who were cultivating in seclusion opened their eyes. Then they flew out of their seclusion and stood in the air. The sky above the lair of Zulong was filled with people, each with an astonishingly powerful aura. The final battle is coming. The evil god race has turned out in full force to attack the heaven realm. Sound the war drums and pass down the order. Let everyone in the abysmal heavenly domain, Wanling heavenly domain, and Hunyuan heavenly domain return to the two-world city. Defend the evil god race with the two-world city and the Goeishu city. In addition, summon all experts above the quasi-emperor level in the heaven realm and the primordial realm to gather at the Goeishu city in the two-world city. The ancestral dragon issued several orders in succession. Yes, everyone bowed respectfully, then turned into streaks of rainbow light and disappeared. Dong! 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 On this day, earth-shattering war drums sounded from the lair of Zulong and spread throughout the heaven realm. Is the final battle coming? At the bottom of a large lake, an old man with messy hair suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was like a divine sword piercing through the sky. Then he took a step and disappeared. In a stretch of volcanoes, the cry of a phoenix resounded through the sky. After cultivating in seclusion for so long, it's finally time for a battle. Swoosh! A flaming phoenix soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon. In a vast mountain, a group of people rushed into the sky. The Song clan has been in seclusion for so many years. It's time for a battle. A voice sounded, and a group of stalwart experts soared into the sky. Roar! Roar! Waves of dragon roars came from the most famous dragon valley in the Taiching heavenly domain. This was the gathering place of the True Dragon clan, where most of the true dragons in the heaven realm gathered. At this moment, true dragons spiraled into the sky. Black dragons, snow dragons, blood dragons, fire dragons, white dragons, blue dragons, golden dragons, different true dragons gathered together, forming an army of true dragons that flew toward the Goeishu battlefield. In another place, countless heavenly tigers soared into the sky. In the Phoenix Lair, countless phoenixes flew. On the Qilin Peak, countless Qilins stepped into the sky. At this moment, countless divine beast clans gathered in the Taiching heavenly domain. The battlefield they were heading to was the Goeishu battlefield. This time, the divine beasts were in charge of the Goeishu battlefield, while the humans were in charge of the two-world city. Chapter 2543. Countless major forces were rushing to two-world city. No one could stay out of the battle of life and death in the heaven realm. Defeat meant death. The heaven realm cultivators who were exploring in abysmal heaven, Wanling heaven, and Hunyuan heaven also retreated to two-world city. After all, two-world city had been in operation for many years, and countless formations had been engraved. It was easier for them to defend. If they were to defend abysmal heaven, their forces would be scattered, and they would be defeated one by one. The Heaven Realm army gathered on the two battlefields, waiting for the battle. Outside the lair of Zulum, a group of people stood in the void. Everyone in this group was a terrifying cultivator, and they were all invincible in the demigod realm. They had been in seclusion before, but now they had all come out. There were two images in front of them. These two images directly reflected the situation of the Sinkhole battlefield and the Two-World City battlefield. They were here to command and monitor the situation on the two battlefields. Dragon Emperor Peak. Young Master is still in seclusion. What should we do? Lei asked the others. The final battle is coming. We must participate. How about this? 2 of us stay to protect Young Master, and the rest go to the battle. Dee said, That's the only way. The others nodded. Not long after, many figures flew out of the Dragon Emperor Peak. Those who were above the Quasi-Emperor realm flew towards the Two-World City, leaving behind 2 heavenly emperors who stayed behind. Lu Xiangxiang, Ouyang Moli, Bubbles, Long Cheng, Huangling, Huangli, and others all rushed to Two-World City. In addition, the various forces of the primordial realm also sent their cultivators through the void passage to the heaven realm to participate in the battle. This was a battle of life and death. Even if some forces did not want to participate, they had no choice. If they did not want to participate, they would be eliminated by other cultivators first. In the sky above Dragon Emperor Peak, there was a flash, and ancestral Gragon appeared. He carefully looked at Lu Ming for a while and whispered, You're about to break through, Lu Ming. I hope you can break through as soon as possible. After saying this, ancestral Gragon's figure disappeared, and then appeared outside the lair of Zulum, where he commanded. As the strongest cultivator in the heaven realm, ancestral Gragon naturally had to command here. In the evil god realm, there were also some figures standing in the void. They were all outsider monarchs, including the old-timers and, of course, the outsider sacred ancient. In front of them, there were also 2 images floating in midair. They also reflected 2 Realm City and ruins of End City. At this moment, countless troops of the evil god tribe were heading towards the heaven realm through the void passageway. The void passage that connected the evil god realm and the heaven realm was extremely wide and huge. It could accommodate many living beings at the same time. Send all the beasts to attack Sinkhole City. The outsider sacred patriarch gave the order. After he gave the order, someone immediately used a sound transmission jade talisman and disappeared in a beam of light. Of course, this place was too far away from the heaven realm. The sound transmission jade talisman couldn't transmit that far in one go. However, there were messengers along the way. This sound transmission jade talisman flew to the next messenger. The messenger continued to transmit the message and flew to the next messenger. Just like that, it didn't take long for the news to reach the heaven realm. There was also a similar sound transmission route in the heaven realm. The evil god tribe's army was divided into 2 groups, charging toward the returning ruined city and the Two-World City. As time passed, the armies of the 2 sides drew closer. Suddenly, the battlefield outside Sinkhole City roared like thunder. Countless beasts of the evil god world appeared and madly charged at Sinkhole City. These beasts also had 3 eyes and were huge. They were extremely bloodthirsty and possessed astonishing combat strength. Get ready. A voice came from within Sinkhole City. Roar, roar. All sorts of roars rang out as countless divine beasts of the heaven realm readied themselves. Rumble. Countless beasts of the evil god world either ran on the ground or stepped through the air, rumbling as they charged at Sinkhole City. There was no end, truly no end. It was impossible to see just how many beasts there were. Activate the array. The array above Sinkhole City flashed as countless arrays appeared. The celestial realm had been defending Sinkhole City for countless years, and the defenses were as solid as iron. There were all kinds of great formations. There were defensive types, and there were also offensive types. Attack! When the beasts of the evil god world were some distance away from Sinkhole City, someone gave the order. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dazzling light shone above Sinkhole City as countless attacks flew out, attacking the beasts of the evil god world. Uft! Uft! Beasts of the evil god world were constantly killed. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. However, there were too many beasts of the evil god world. There was no end to them, and they surged toward Sinkhole City like a tide. To the evil god race, these beasts of the evil god race were just beasts. They didn't care about them at all. Beasts of the evil god world were constantly killed, but even more beasts were constantly approaching Sinkhole City. Boom! Finally, the strange beast from the evil god tribe arrived before the returning ruined city and crashed into the defensive formation of the returning ruined city. At this moment, the entire returning ruins city trembled violently. Kill! The army of divine beasts above Sinkhole City continuously attacked those beasts. At the same time, the offensive array of Sinkhole City was activated, and all sorts of attacks were launched at those beasts. Large numbers of beasts were killed, but those beasts were incomparably frenzied. They didn't fear death as they crazily crashed into the defensive array of Sinkhole City. Some beasts even chose to self-detonate. Boom! Boom! The defensive array of Sinkhole City continued to rumble, and the tremors became more and more intense. At the back, some places finally couldn't resist and were torn apart. A large group of beasts of the evil god world charged into Sinkhole City. Kill! The army of divine beasts of the heaven world roared and charged at those beasts. Both sides clashed, and a tragic battle officially erupted. At this moment, countless evil god race soldiers appeared on the battlefield outside Two World City. There were no beasts here. They were all experts of the evil god race. Countless evil god race soldiers were densely packed, covering the sky as they charged toward Two World City. Moreover, there were all sorts of heavy siege weapons that crushed the void as they charged toward Two World City. Get ready. On top of Two World City, the army of the heaven world started to prepare. The array shone, and all sorts of defensive arrays were activated. The armies of both sides were getting closer and closer. Attack! The heaven world side took the lead in attacking. All sorts of attacks flew toward the army of the evil god race. Set up the array and defend. The army of the evil god race was completely different from the beasts of the evil god world. They were in groups of 100 or 1,000, and they formed defensive arrays. At the same time, they used defensive weapons to block the attacks. The attacks of the heaven world side weren't very effective. Rumble! The army of the evil god race continued to approach Two World City. The heaven world army's destructive power against the evil god race was limited. After all, they were long-range attacks, and their power wasn't particularly strong. Boom! Chapter 2544. The evil god tribe had sent in too many troops. It could be said that they had turned out in full force. Moreover, the weakest among them was a quasi-emperor. There were at least tens of millions of boundary emperors, millions of void emperors, and hundreds of thousands of true emperors. Among them, there were also tens of thousands of great emperors. What a terrifying force! Moreover, these evil god tribe had great emperors as generals, true emperors and void emperors as backbones, and boundary emperors as soldiers. The power of these formations was even more shocking. This force was already incomparable to the previous attacks of the evil god tribe. In the past, only a portion of the evil god tribe's forces were attacking the Two World City. Now, they were attacking with their full force. Boom! 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 The defensive formations of the Two World City rumbled violently and shook nonstop. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to defend for long. Although the offensive formations of the Two World City were attacking continuously and killed a portion of the evil god tribe, it was just a drop in the bucket against the endless tide of evil god tribe. Rip! Some of the defensive formations were torn open. Once a gap was opened, it was like water bursting out of a dam, unstoppable. The defensive formations crumbled continuously, and more cracks appeared. Kill, flatten the heaven realm. Kill. Countless members of the evil god tribe charged into the formation. Kill. The heaven realm experts also charged toward the evil god tribe. Both sides engaged in an intense battle. However, neither side sent in any heavenly emperor experts. Heavenly emperors were the core strength of both sides. They were very crucial. The evil god tribe didn't move, and the heaven realm wouldn't move either. Otherwise, if they were killed by the heavenly emperors after exhausting their strength to kill evil god tribe members below the heavenly emperor realm, it would affect the battle situation. Whether it was the two-world city or the returning ruined city, the battle became more and more intense. In the end, the defensive formations of the two cities completely collapsed. The experts of both sides fought each other. Both sides added up to nearly 100 million troops. That scene was too shocking. The city walls of the two-world city that stretched for tens of millions of miles were engulfed in the flames of war. Countless people were killing each other. With my blood, I will exterminate the outsiders and exchange for peace in the heaven realm. A middle-aged man from the heaven world roared. His cultivation base was at the great emperor realm. His saber slashed out, cleaving a great emperor of the evil god race into two. However, on the other side, a destructive ray pierced through and killed the burly human. Similar situations were occurring all over the battlefield. On the battlefield, the situation changed rapidly. Every moment, a large number of people died in battle. Kill. Long Chen, Huang Li, Ouyang Wushuang, Lu Xiangxiang, Ouyang Moli, Huang Li, and the others gathered together and formed a great formation. They swept out and killed the evil god tribe members one by one. They had all entered the Yellow Spring Island and obtained fortuitous encounters that greatly increased their cultivation bases. In the past 200 years, they had refined the fruits of life that Lu Ming had given them. Their cultivation had skyrocketed, and they had all reached peak, great emperor realm. With so many of them working together and forming a great formation, they were invincible. Everywhere they passed, evil god tribe members would be killed. Not long after, they had already killed over 1,000 members of the evil god tribe. The evil god realm, the foreign sacred ancestor, and the various foreign kings were all watching. Their expressions were calm without any ripples. To them, no matter how many members of the evil god tribe below the heavenly emperor died, they would not care. What they cared about was being able to flatten the heavenly realm and successfully split open the sky. That would affect their future, especially those mutated beasts. They did not care about them at all. On the returning ruins battlefield, the killing was even more intense. The ones fighting here were the mutated beasts of the evil god tribe and the divine beasts of the heavenly realm. The mutated beasts of the evil god tribe were incomparably crazy and did not fear death. They also caused the divine beasts of the heavenly realm to suffer heavy losses. Form the divine beast formation. A voice rang out on the battlefield. Roar, roar. Waves of dragon roars rang out. The true dragons of the true dragon tribe began to gather and form a great formation. They turned into a terrifying true dragon with a shocking aura that swept out in all directions. When it opened its mouth and roared, a large number of mutated beasts were killed. At the same time, the Phoenix tribe, Qilin tribe, Heavenly Tiger tribe, Holy Bull tribe, and the others formed a great formation. They turned into huge phoenixes, Qilins, Heavenly Tigers, and the others. Their power soared. In an instant, a large number of mutated beasts of the evil god tribe were killed. Send the giant Sioux tribe to the returning ruins battlefield. The foreign sacred ancestor ordered. Yes. Immediately, someone spread the news. Boom, boom, boom. In front of the returning ruins city, the earth rumbled. Many huge creatures appeared at the end of the world. They were incomparably huge creatures covered in black scales. Their bodies had incomparably huge tentacles that looked like the tentacles of an octopus. They also had a third eye at the center of their brows. This was the giant Sioux tribe of the evil god tribe. This kind of creature was extremely rare in the evil god tribe. However, when each of them reached adulthood, their bodies would be astonishingly huge. When they stood on the ground, they were truly indomitable. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize that this kind of creature had attacked a passage guarded by the Titan heavenly bull back then. Boom! Boom! The giant Sioux tribe stepped on the ground. With every step, the ground would explode and crack. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. The giant Sioux tribe, True Dragon tribe, Chilan tribe, and Phoenix tribe formed a great formation and fought fiercely. This made the battle in the returning ruined city even more intense. To World City, send out heavenly emperor assassins. The foreign race's divine ancestor ordered. Yes. Immediately, someone spread the news. Outside the Two World City, there were many short, evil, god tribe members with 4 arms. With a flash, they disappeared. They blended into the crowd of evil god tribe members and charged towards the Heaven Realm warriors. These short, evil god tribe members were too fast. They were natural killers. Moreover, their cultivation was at the Heavenly Emperor realm. The moment they moved, the ancestral Gragon immediately noticed them. Send out Heavenly Emperor realm experts who specialize in speed to block the evil god tribe's assassins. The ancestral Gragon ordered. Immediately, the news spread to the battlefield. It's my turn. Chirp, chirp. Behind the Two World City, there are many heavenly emperors from the heavenly realm. Bubble was among them. At this moment, Bubble cried out excitedly. In a flash, she rushed out. Bubble's speed was extremely fast. He rushed out and arrived at the battlefield in the next instant. Wherever her figure passed, the terrifying space-time energy shrouded the bodies of some evil god tribe members. These evil god tribe members withered and turned into skeletons. It was as if they had been deprived of time. Whoosh! Suddenly, a saber light exploded. A short, evil god tribe member with 4 arms slashed at Bubble with 4 sharp blades in his hands. He was extremely fast. Experts of the same level couldn't keep up with the speed of this evil god tribe member. However, he came into contact with Bubble. I noticed you long ago. Chirp, chirp. Chapter 2545. Bubble easily killed a heavenly emperor from the evil god assassin clan. With a flash, she appeared several tens of thousands of leagues away and pressed her small hands forward. In the area in front of her, everything seemed to have come to a standstill. The experts from the Heaven Realm and the evil god tribe who were in the midst of a great battle stopped moving. At the same time, a figure suddenly appeared in the void that was originally empty. It was an evil god tribe member with 4 arms. At this moment, this evil god tribe member's face was filled with horror. He had been hiding in the void, wanting to secretly assassinate the experts from the Heaven Realm. However, he was forced out of the void by Bubble. Moreover, his entire body was restrained by a powerful force, unable to move. Swoosh! Bubble charged past, and this evil god tribe member's body directly turned into ashes. Swoosh! 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 However, at the next moment, streams of terrifying sharpness slashed toward Bubble from all directions. Their speed was astonishing, and their might was terrifying. I'll retreat. Bubble retreated rapidly. However, there were also terrifying sharpness slashing toward her from behind. Clearly, the other party had seen through Bubble's threat. A few experts secretly charged toward Bubble, wanting to get rid of her. Pooh! Bubble's body was slashed into 2 and then turned into ashes. Following that, a few short, evil god tribe members appeared in the air. Their expressions were grave as they looked around. Kacha! All of a sudden, cracks appeared in the space around them. After that, the space started to distort rapidly, transforming into a cage that trapped the few short and small evil god race members within. Not good, break. One of the evil god tribe members roared. The few evil god tribe members attacked together. They were all holding scimitars that were astonishingly sharp. With a casual slash, they could easily slice through space. However, they couldn't slice through the space that Bubble had set up. Their weapons slashed at the surrounding space. The space flowed like water ripples, but it quickly returned to its original state. "Time reversal," Bubble said softly, waving her hands continuously. Streams of mysterious aura enveloped the few evil god tribe members. A shocking scene appeared. The auras of the few evil god tribe members were rapidly declining. Their appearances were also rapidly changing. Originally, the few evil god tribe members looked middle-aged. However, they were now turning younger. At first, they were young men, then teenagers. At the same time, their cultivation levels were also regressing. At the start, it was the Heavenly Emperor realm. Then it was the Great Emperor realm, the True Emperor realm, and finally the Martial Sage realm. This was an extremely terrifying ability that could reverse time of the enemy when their cultivation levels were still weak. To Bubble, she could kill them. Of the Martial Sage realm, Bubbles pressed down with her small hand, and the bodies of several members of the evil god race turned into ashes. Several Heavenly Emperor realm evil god tribe members were killed by Bubble just like that. After Bubble reached Heavenly Emperor realm, her divine abilities became more and more marvelous. Her combat strength became stronger and stronger. Same-level powerhouses were not her match at all. Meanwhile, on the other side, Huangling, Longchen, Huang Li, and the others were in danger. Of the evil god tribe members of the evil god tribe, of evil of. A terrifyingly sharp saber light suddenly slashed towards Huangling and the others. Its power was shocking. Heavenly, only heavenly of heavens. Their faces changed. Although they were all peak great emperors, they were still a far cry from the Heavenly Emperor realm. They formed a formation and joined forces. A huge shield was formed, blocking above them. "Kacha!" A sharp, ear-piercing sound rang out as the blade light struck the shield. Immediately, cracks appeared on the shield before it exploded. "Die!" A short, evil god tribe member appeared. His face was ferocious and filled with killing intent. The weapons on his forearms slashed at Huangling and the rest. "Kill! Kill!" Huangling, Longchen, and the rest shouted. They attacked with all their might and used their trump cards. However, they were still too far away from the Heavenly Emperor. Moreover, this short, evil god tribe member was not an ordinary one-star Heavenly Emperor. He was a two-star Heavenly Emperor. Bam! 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 Explosions rang out continuously. Huangling and the rest's attacks were defeated by the short, evil god tribe member. The sharp blade light continued to slash at them, wanting to kill them. At this moment, the cry of a phoenix was heard. Huangling was bathed in flames. She seemed to have turned into an immortal heavenly phoenix. She soared into the sky and pounced at the evil god tribe Heavenly Emperor. Not good. Long Qin, Huangling, Lu Xiangxiang, and the rest were shocked. Puff! Huangling was hit. Her body flew over, and she turned back into her human form. Her delicate body was almost cut in half. However, there was a mysterious aura around her body. Her body was recovering rapidly. It was the indestructible ancient scripture. When Lu Ming obtained the indestructible ancient scripture, it was a heavenly Tao imprint of the indestructible emperor. When his cultivation was still weak, he could not inscribe it and could not pass it to others. However, when Lu Ming came out of the Netherworld Mountain, his cultivation level was sufficient and he could completely inscribe it. Lu Ming inscribed the indestructible ancient scripture and passed it to Bubble, Dandan, Huangling, Longchen, Lu Xiangxiang, and so on. Lu Ming had passed the indestructible ancient scripture to those who were close to Lu Ming. He was preparing for this battle. Everyone had cultivated the indestructible ancient scripture for hundreds of years. They were already well versed in it. Moreover, Huangling had consumed the fruit of life before. The medicinal power of the fruit of life was still in her blood. Although she was severely injured, she was not dead. She was recovering rapidly. A great emperor is still alive after being hit by me. Let's see how many moves you can take." The short, evil god tribe member was stunned at first. Then he revealed a murderous look and was about to attack Huang Ling and the rest. However, just as he was about to attack, he realized that he could not move his body. "No!" he roared, and his body exploded with a bang, turning into ashes. A figure appeared behind him. It was Bubble. Bubble, Lu Xiangxiang, and the rest were overjoyed when they saw Bubble. "Let's work together," Bubble said. Then he joined forces with Huang Ling, Lu Xiangxiang, and the rest to fight against the foreign races. In other parts of the battlefield, the fighting was even more intense. The short, evil god tribe member was too fast. He flashed in the army and killed the Heaven Realm experts. Fortunately, there were also heavenly emperors who were good at speed and assassination. They arrived in time and killed the other party. All of this was seen by the leaders of both sides, the evil god realm, the divine ancestors of the foreign races, and the various kings also saw Bubble's performance. Humph! Another space-time spirit mouse. In the battle back then, the space-time spirit mouse caused great losses to our army. The first king said in a cold voice. Fortunately, this space-time spirit mouse has not reached its peak. Its strength is not strong enough. Chapter 2546. They clearly remembered how difficult it was to deal with the space-time spirit rats during the ancient war. Back then, that space-time spirit mouse was only at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm. However, an ordinary peak Heavenly Emperor was not its match at all. Even a demigod would find it difficult to kill a space-time spirit mouse. The space-time spirit mouse's ability to survive was too strong. In the end, they had to use a few demigods to kill that space-time spirit mouse. Now that Bubble's cultivation hadn't reached its peak, they heaved a sigh of relief. Space-time spirit rats are one of the few races that came from the outside world. They have a great background and are extremely shocking. They haven't displayed their potential at all, or else they would be even more terrifying. Let all the heavenly emperors enter the field. I want this space-time spirit mouse alive. The outsider's sacred ancestor spoke. Yes, someone accepted the order and spread the news. Immediately, regardless of whether it was the Origin Ruin battlefield or the Two Realms City battlefield, the evil god race's heavenly emperor powerhouses started setting off. Returning Ruin City, Two World City, and the evil god race each sent out 5,000 heavenly emperors to battle, flying towards the battlefield. Their auras were so strong that it shook the heavens and earth. Those were heavenly emperors. Each battlefield had a total of 5,000 heavenly emperors. What kind of concept was that? The evil god race only had so many heavenly emperor realm existences after accumulating for countless years. Beside the lair of Zulong, the evil god race's heavenly emperor has appeared. Pass down the order for the heavenly emperor to fight. Ancestral Gragon ordered. The order was passed down very quickly. Immediately on the Heaven Realm side, the Heavenly Emperor realm powerhouses practically all went to battle. In returning Ruin City, almost everyone was a divine beast expert. Numerous terrifying divine beasts soared through the air, rushing towards the heavenly emperors of the evil god race. The heavenly emperors of both sides, in the depths of the sky, launched an even more tragic battle. On the side of the Heaven Realm, the number of cultivators who cultivated in the lair of Zulong was astonishing, especially the divine beasts. After all, the ancestral dragon was a true dragon. Therefore, on the side of the Heaven Realm, the strength of the divine beasts was still stronger. However, with the addition of the prison suppression realm, the human race's strength skyrocketed. Therefore, the battlefield at Two Realm City was a joint effort between the human race and the prison suppression realm. In the battlefield of Two World City, all the human heavenly emperors also went to battle. In the air above the battlefield, they fought intensely with the heavenly emperors of the evil god race, causing the heavens and earth to crumble and the sun and moon to dim. This was a bloody massacre. The battlefield seemed to have turned into a purgatory. This was a true decisive battle that would decide the fate of one side. No one would be soft-hearted, and no one would hold back. Everyone only had one goal, and that was to kill their opponent. In the Heavenly Emperor army, there were many figures that Lu Ming was familiar with. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu, Heavenly Sovereign Six Saints, Immemorial Physique, Cultivators, Lei 1, 2-1, and so on. Kill! A white-haired old man let out a long howl. His entire body was bathed in blood as he fought against a tall, evil god race member. This old man, if Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize him. He was the Lan family's old ancestor, a 4-star heavenly emperor. However, the evil god tribe member he was fighting was not weak at all. The two of them fought a bloody battle, exchanging a few hundred moves. Puff! In the end, the Lan clan's old ancestor smashed the head of the evil god race's old ancestor with a palm strike. However, before the evil god race's old ancestor died, he did his best to slash out with his axe, cleaving the Lan clan's old ancestor into two. Mutual destruction. Water 1. On the other side, Lei roared in rage. Water 1 was killed. He was blasted apart in the air by a royal member of the evil god race. A bunch of puppets die. The royal member of the evil god race was incomparably powerful. He had the cultivation of a 5-star heavenly emperor. Just as he was about to charge towards Lei and the rest, a sword light suddenly flashed. This royal member of the evil god race's body stiffened in place. Then with a bang he split into several pieces, dying on the spot. A middle-aged man with a cold expression appeared. Xian Luo. Lei recognized this person. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize that this person was Xian Feng, Xian Xiang, and the rest's old ancestor. Clearly his injuries had already healed, and he had the cultivation of a peak heavenly emperor. Xian Luo's expression was cold as he charged forward. However, a peak heavenly emperor from the evil god race had his eyes on him, and the two of them engaged in a great battle. There were people dying constantly. Heavenly emperors, great emperors, they were usually powerhouses of a region. But now they were worthless and kept dying in battle. The foreign race's sacred ancestor and the rest, ancestral Gragon and the rest, were all staring at the scene in front of them, paying attention to the battlefield at all times. Senior, I'm afraid that the outsiders won't send the same number of troops to both the Sinkhole battlefield and the Two-World City battlefield. I'm guessing that they'll feign an attack on one battlefield while sending their main forces to the other, and then crush them one by one. A half-god suggested to Ancestral Gragon. Amen, I think so too. It's just that I don't know which battlefield they will use as their main attack target. Ancestral Gragon nodded. Their expressions were all very grave, because they were clear that the main force of the evil god race had not made a move yet. Those half-gods and a terrifying army from the ancient era, the Heaven-Crushing Army. This army was known to have trampled the Heaven Realm, incomparably terrifying. Moreover, the foreign race's sacred ancestor and sacred ancestor killer heart had not made a move. This battle was very disadvantageous to them. The great battle continued. In a blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. Evil God Realm. The 9 of you attack together and attack the Origin Ruins battlefield. Lure out that group of half-gods from the Heaven Realm. The foreign race's sacred ancestors looked at those foreign race kings. However, he was looking at the current kings. Apart from the first king, the other 9 people. Yes, the 9 great kings received the order, then tore through the void and rushed to the Origin Ruins battlefield. The Origin Ruins battlefield on the ground or in the air was the battlefield below Heavenly Emperor. The True Dragon race, the Phoenix race, the Qilin race, and the other most powerful races all laid down great formations to fight with the other side's giant beard race. Both sides were locked in a fierce battle, and in the air was the battlefield of the Heavenly Emperors. Rip! Suddenly, space tore open, and an incomparably terrifying sword light slashed out, slashing toward the True Dragon battle formation. This True Dragon battle formation was set up by at least 10,000 True Dragons, forming a huge true dragon to fight with a giant beard race member. At this moment, when the sword light slashed down, the true dragon's expressions changed drastically. Roar! 10,000 true dragons roared, forming a great formation. A huge dragon claw reached out and grabbed at the sword light. Boom! With a terrifying explosion, the huge dragon claw was directly cut off, and the hundreds of true dragons that had set up this dragon claw were instantly killed. The entire formation also collapsed, and the 10,000 true dragons frantically retreated, many vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Rip! Space tore open, and a figure appeared. He held a battle sword in his hand and wore a crown on his head, emitting a terrifying aura. Not good, it's the enemy's king. Many people's expressions changed drastically. Kill! This evil god tribe's king was incomparably cold. With a battle sword in hand, he once again charged toward the 10,000 true dragons. Your opponent is me. In the distance, an explosive roar sounded. Following that, an incomparably huge golden dragon claw suddenly appeared, grabbing at the foreign race king. The foreign race king slashed out with his sword, colliding with the golden dragon claw, and the void constantly shattered. Chapter 2547. Golden Holy Dragon King. The non-human king said coldly, "This golden dragon was the king of the true dragon race, the golden holy dragon king. He was a demigod, the strongest existence in the true dragon race aside from the ancestral dragon. He was even stronger than the 9 dragons of the past. The top 10 war beasts weren't the strongest in the divine beast race. There were some that could rival or even surpass the top 10 war beasts. For example, the golden holy dragon king and the sky tiger emperor. The reason why the top 10 war beasts were so famous was because of their uniqueness. The top 10 war beasts were almost all mutations, such as the 9 dragons and the 9-headed golden lion. Moreover, there was only one of them in the world. Each one had shocking talent, so they were so famous. The golden holy dragon king said coldly, "You killed so many of my dragon race. I'll tear you to shreds." The golden holy dragon king roared and charged at the non-human king, engaging in an intense battle. "Golden holy dragon king, can you stop all of us by yourself?" A cold voice said, "Not far away." Space trembled, and another non-human king appeared. His powerful aura pressed down on the golden holy dragon king. "Is that so? Do you think there's no one in my celestial realm?" A sharp voice said. Space tore open, and a huge phoenix covered in red flames flew out. Roar! With a roar, a huge tiger as large as a mountain appeared on the other side. It was filled with a ferocious aura and a terrifying aura. "Old Phoenix King, Sky Tiger Emperor, you old fellows are all here." A cold smile appeared at the corner of the alien monarch's mouth. "Good. They didn't die in the ancient war. This time they're dead for sure." A cold voice rang out as numerous figures appeared beside the king of the foreign races. There were a total of 8 figures. Including the one fighting the golden, holy dragon king, there were 9 in total. Each of them wore a crown and had a heaven-shaking aura. The 9 non-human kings gathered. Aside from the Sky Tiger Emperor and the Old Phoenix King, no one dared to approach within several million miles. Those who were fighting consciously distanced themselves from this area. These were all unrivaled experts. Once they fought, the world would be turned upside down. Those who got too close would be crushed. "I didn't expect all 9 of you to gather." The Sky Tiger Sovereign's expression was extremely grave. "What's wrong? There are only 3 of you in the heaven realm. Today, I'll get rid of all of you." One of the foreign kings was the most impatient. He immediately charged towards the Old Phoenix King. Then the other outsider king also made his move, fighting with the Heavenly Tiger Emperor. However, there were still 6 non-human kings present. Looks like those guys from the heaven realm haven't arrived yet. Let's get rid of these 3 beasts first and bring them back to drink." A tall outsider monarch, his purple hair fluttering in the wind, directly attacked the Sky Tiger sovereign with a terrifying move. He wanted to join forces with another outsider king to deal with the Sky Tiger Emperor first. However, at this moment, a long spear pierced through the void and pierced towards this foreign race monarch. The foreign monarch's expression changed drastically upon seeing this, and he could only change his stance halfway through to block the spear. Boom! The void exploded as the long spear vibrated. A burly man in battle armor stepped out from the dark void, his aura berserk. 5 elements, your cultivation base. The foreign race monarch was shocked. This burly man in battle armor was one of the top 10 war beasts, the 5 elements Qilin. Back then, he was only a peak heavenly emperor, but now he was a true demigod. Surprised? Today, I'll slaughter you. The 5 elements Qilin was extremely powerful. Slaughter me? Ha ha ha. So what if you're added to the mix? You're still dead. The foreign race monarch laughed loudly. Count me in. With a roar, a huge golden lion charged over from afar. Its 9 heads roared, its aura terrifying. It was also a demigod. Haha, Qing-tsang, looks like you've also broken through. With a loud laugh, a giant bull appeared, its aura berserk. Beside the giant bull followed a middle-aged man. It was the 9 lives demonic silkworm. Their auras had all reached the demigod realm. How is this possible? How did all of your cultivations reach the demigod realm? Damn it! Several foreign race monarchs cried out in disbelief. First, it was the 5 elements Qilin, then the 9-headed golden lion, then the Titan heavenly bull, and the 9 lives demonic silkworm. One had to know that they were all peak heavenly emperors in the past. Peak heavenly emperors seemed to be only a step away from demigods. But to cross this step was indeed extremely difficult. Demigods also had the word God. Igniting a wisp of divine fire meant that one had completely stepped into another level, a higher level of life. The meaning was completely different. In the world, there were many peak heavenly emperors, but the number of demigods was extremely small. If it was a breakthrough, it would still make sense. But now the 5 elements Qilin, Qing-tsang, the Titan heavenly bull, and the 9 lives demonic silkworm had all broken through. This was shocking. No wonder these foreign race monarchs were so shocked. In the past, relying on your high cultivation, weren't you very awesome? Now let's fight. Qing-tsang roared. The 9 lion heads roared and charged towards a foreign race monarch. At the same time, the Titan heavenly bull and the 9 lives demonic silkworm also charged towards a foreign race monarch. Of the 9 foreign race monarchs, 7 had opponents. There were still 2 left. Attack first. Join hands to kill them. The remaining 2 foreign race monarchs' eyes flashed with a cold light. Just as they were about to attack and join hands to kill the 9 lives demonic silkworm and the others, at this moment, the void in the distance exploded. A huge mountain suddenly rushed out of the void. It was incomparably huge and suppressed one of the giant beard race monarchs. Although the giant beard race monarchs were incomparably powerful, it was still difficult for them to resist this huge mountain. They were directly blasted into meat paste by the mountain. Whoosh! A battle sword suddenly slashed out from the top of the other giant beard race monarch's head, cutting him in half. In the blink of an eye, 2 powerful giant beard race monarchs were killed. Who is it? Sneak attack. Courting death. The 2 foreign race monarchs were furious. The giant beard race monarchs were weapons of war. Each of them was very powerful, but their numbers were extremely small. Now that 2 of them were killed in an instant, the foreign race monarchs' hearts were bleeding. Boom! Boom! The 2 of them attacked at the same time. They stretched out 2 large hands and blasted towards the direction of the 2 weapons. The void in that area directly shattered. Swish! Swish! The 2 weapons shook and disappeared. In the next moment, a battle sword appeared above the head of the other giant beard race monarch and slashed down, killing him. Damn it, you're courting death. The 2 foreign race monarchs were enraged. They rushed out and joined hands to attack continuously. The area was completely destroyed, and the void was blasted into smithereens. Aya, you scared me to death. In the dark void, a 17 or 18-year-old youth wearing a Taoist robe was shouting and jumping around, dodging the attacks of the foreign race monarchs. Chapter 2548. World Divine Turtle, you're courting death. The two kings immediately recognized Dandan's true form and charged at Dandan. Around Dandan, 5 or 6 weapons were flying around him. They were all Heaven Path soldiers. At this moment, Dandan pushed his hands forward, and the Heaven Path soldiers flew towards the two kings and clashed with them. The void exploded, and Dandan's weapons were knocked back. You turtle! You're lucky that you didn't die back then. How dare you come out? We'll roast you today. One of the kings said coldly, Mother f asterisk her, I couldn't beat you back then, but don't think I can't beat you now. If I don't step on your faces today, I won't be called the world divine ghost. Dandan was furious. Its body changed rapidly, and it turned into a giant turtle. Its shell was covered with strange patterns, and it looked ancient. A terrifying aura emanated from Dandan's body. Demigod, how is this possible? You've broken through too. One of the kings shouted in disbelief. What was going on? The remaining top 10 beasts had all broken through to the demigod realm. How is this possible? Kill. Let's kill you. Dandan laughed. Its body was huge, but its speed was shockingly fast. It slapped down with its claws, and countless runes appeared, forming a terrifying attack. So what if you've broken through? You're still going to die. The two kings looked ferocious as they charged at Dandan. They wanted to kill Dandan together. Boom! Boom! There was a terrifying explosion, and the void exploded. Dandan's huge body retreated, but the two kings also retreated. They were evenly matched. The two non-human kings' faces were extremely ugly. At the same time, they were extremely shocked. Dandan's combat strength was terrifyingly strong. It could fight against both of them at the same time. In the demigod realm, the difference in combat strength would not be too great. There were very few who could be stronger than others. For example, the primal Chaos Emperor and the Immortal Emperor were stronger than ordinary demigods, but they could not fight against two demigods. In the evil god tribe, only the strongest king had the combat strength to fight against two demigods. However, Dandan had the same strength. How could they not be shocked? Haha, that's all? Come again. Dandan laughed and charged at the two kings. The two sides engaged in an intense battle, and it was a stalemate. As a result, the 9 emperors were all blocked. Ha ha ha, good. On Ancestral Dragon's side, a tall and sturdy man laughed loudly. The others beside the Ancestral Dragon burst out laughing with joy on their faces. This was a pleasant surprise. They hadn't expected Qing-Song, the 5 elements, the Titan Longhorn Beetle, and the others to have all entered the demigod realm. Originally, they had planned to head out to stop the outsider kings, but now they didn't have to do anything. Were. Is this the effect of the fruit of life? One of them said, That's right. This time, Lu Ming obtained a lot of fruits of life. I gave them to you and 5 elements. Lu Ming also has some left. He gave them to Titan 9 Lives and the others. Therefore, they relied on the energy of the fruits of life to break through their bottlenecks. Ancestral Dragon said, Lu Ming, it's all thanks to him this time. Another person sighed. The others nodded. Over the years, Lu Ming did not have many fruits of life left. Almost all of them had been given away. However, everyone understood that the 9 Lives demonic silkworm, Qing-Song, and the others were able to break through. Firstly, their talent was shocking to begin with. Secondly, they had accumulated for too many years and had long accumulated enough. That was why they could rely on the fruits of life to break through in one fell swoop. If it were other peak heavenly emperors, even with the fruits of life, they might not be able to break through. However, this was definitely a pleasant surprise for the heavenly realm. On the evil god tribe's side, it was the opposite. Beside the foreign race's sacred ancestor, the strongest king and the old kings all had gloomy expressions. How is this possible? How can the top 10 battle beasts all break through to the demigod realm? The strongest king roared. He really could not figure it out. Not to mention him. Even the foreign race's sacred ancestor could not figure it out. He did not know that Lu Ming had obtained the inheritance of the Yellow Springs Island Master and obtained a large number of fruits of life. Therefore, his expression was extremely gloomy now. Their plan was disrupted. Originally, their plan was to have the 9 foreign race kings attack the Ultimate Ruins battlefield and lure out the demigods of the heavenly realm. Then, they could send these old kings to attack the 2-world city battlefield with all their strength, break through the 2-world city in one fell swoop, charge into the Supreme Clear Sky Domain, and trample over the Supreme Clear Sky Domain. But now, this plan was no longer feasible. Let the heaven-splitting army prepare. Also, all of you attack together and attack 2-world city. The foreign race's sacred ancestor instructed. Yes, the strongest king and the old kings all nodded. Their eyes were filled with cold light as they tore through space and left. The moment they moved, the ancestral dragon discovered them. Those old fellows of the foreign race are about to make their move. Next, it's up to you guys, the ancestral dragon said to the people beside him. Fight to the death. There were more than 10 people beside the ancestral dragon. They were the elites of the heavenly realm accumulated over countless years. Among them, there were not only those who cultivated the laws, but also those who cultivated the primordial martial path, the primordial demon path, and the primordial body cultivation path. There were also elites from the hell-suppressing realm. They were all demigods. They tore through space and appeared on the battlefield of 2-world city in the next moment. Rip, not far in front of them, space tore open continuously, and figures appeared one after another. There were more than 10 of them, and they were the strongest king and the others. Both sides' gazes met and brilliant sparks flew. It's you old fellows. Many of you were injured in the ancient war, and your origin source was damaged. Do you think you can stop us? The strongest king said coldly. You'll know if you try. On the heavenly realms side, an old man in sackcloth said, Bluff. Let's try then. Attack! The strongest king directly charged toward the elites of the heavenly realm. The heavenly realm also moved, charging toward the evil god tribe. Boom! Boom! Earth-shattering rumbles rang out. Both sides clashed, and explosions kept ringing out. The strongest king was incomparably powerful, and his combat strength was far above the other demigods. However, he also had enemies. On the heavenly realm side, there were also existences whose combat strength was not weaker than his. Chaos Emperor, your origin source was damaged back then. How could you have recovered to your peak? The strongest king roared. His opponent was a middle-aged man with a tall and straight figure. This middle-aged man was called the Chaos Emperor. At his peak, his name shook the heavenly realm, and he was even stronger than the Chaos Emperor. However, in the ancient war, the Chaos Emperor's origin source was damaged. All these years he had been in seclusion. Logically speaking, his injuries should not have recovered so quickly. You old fellows were also injured back then. Didn't you recover too? Chapter 2549. More than 10 demigods from the heaven world engaged in an intense battle with the old king of the evil god tribe and the number 1 king. The old king of the evil god tribe, the number 1 king, and the others were both shocked and furious. In the ancient battle, many people in the heaven world had suffered injuries to their life sources. For example, Emperor Rebellious and the others, it was not easy to recover from injuries to their life sources. Of course, some of the old kings of the evil god tribe had also suffered injuries to their life sources. Over the years, the evil god tribe had exhausted almost all of their top heavenly treasures to allow the old kings of the evil god tribe to recover. However, The evil god tribe occupied the entire evil god world and the 8 heavenly domains of the heaven world. With such a vast territory, they naturally had to plunder many treasures. However, the heaven world only had the grand pure sky domain left. Heavenly treasures were very limited, but now the demigods of the heaven world were all in peak condition. They really could not understand. They were shocked and furious. This time, many things had already exceeded their expectations. For example, the world divine turtle, Titan longhorn beetle, 9 lives demonic silkworm, and the other top 10 battle beasts had all become demigods. Also, the old demigods of the heaven world had all recovered to peak condition. These were all unexpected. If they knew that this was all caused by the fruit of life that Lu Ming brought out from Yellow Spring Island, who knew what kind of expression they would have? In the evil god world, the divine ancestor's expression was also very ugly. He looked at the heaven world as if he could see through the endless void and see the distant heaven world. The ancestral Gragon also looked at the evil god tribe as if he was looking at the divine ancestor. Both of their eyes shone brightly. Ancestral Gragon, do you think you can win? This time, the heaven world is destined to be destroyed. All of your efforts will be in vain. The divine ancestor said coldly. His voice directly penetrated the endless void, from the evil god world to the heaven world and into the ancestral Gragon's ears. This kind of skill was simply unimaginable. Is that so? Do you not know that those who are unjust are doomed to destruction? The ancestral Gragon also spoke, his voice directly transmitted to the evil god world. Ha ha ha, ancestral Gragon, you have lived for so long, but you still believe in such nonsense. Laughable, laughable. The divine ancestor laughed coldly. He faced the ancestral Gragon. He controlled everything on the battlefield. In the sinkhole battlefield, in the 2-world city battlefield, the slaughter was incomparably intense. It could be said that both sides had turned out in full force, and it was difficult to determine the victor in a short period of time. This battle lasted for a total of 7 days. Countless experts from both sides had already fallen on the battlefield. Quasi-emperors, void emperors, true emperors, and great emperors had all died. In fact, even heavenly emperor realms had quite a few people who died in battle. On the battlefield of 2-world city, Huang Ling, Long Qin, and the others were bathed in blood. There were wounds all over their bodies, making them look terrifying. After 7 days of fighting, they were still alive. That was all thanks to the indestructible ancient scripture and the fruits of life they had consumed. Otherwise, they would have already died. Kill! They roared loudly and continued to charge towards the evil god tribe. Their eyes were completely red. In the past few days, they had seen countless experts from the heaven realm die in battle. Some of them were people they knew, but now they would forever stay on this land. Right now, they could only kill. Only by wiping out the entire evil god race would they be able to resolve this crisis. It's about time. The outsider sacred ancestor waved his hand, sending a transmission jade talisman flying out. Not long after, a terrifying army moved out and headed towards the battlefield of 2-world city. The heaven-crushing army of the evil god tribe had moved out. The ancestral dragon, who was far away in the heaven realm, also sensed it immediately. I hope they can block it, the ancestral dragon muttered. Then he also sent out a message. On the battlefield of 2-world city, everyone was fighting. Suddenly, a deafening roar came from afar. Then, everyone saw a black cloud rushing towards them. It was another army. This army had hundreds of thousands of people. Although it was nothing compared to the tens of millions of soldiers on the battlefield, the aura they exuded was terrifying. However, the aura they emitted was extremely frightening, causing everyone to tremble with fear. Kill! Kill! The heaven-crushing army roared. The army of 100,000 rushed towards the battlefield like a surging flood. Their cold-killing intent made it hard for people to breathe. It's the heaven-crushing army. Let's get out of the way. The people of the evil god tribe recognized this legendary army and immediately got out of the way, making way for the heaven-crushing army. The heaven-crushing army charged towards the heaven realm army. Whoosh! Whoosh! 100,000 attacks exploded from the heaven-crushing army and charged towards the heaven realm army. Instantly, the heaven realm army was killed one by one. Tens of thousands of people died in an instant. What's going on? So terrifying. The heaven realm army was shocked. Kill. The heaven-crushing army was too strong. Everywhere they passed, they destroyed everything. Countless people died. Damn it, the evil god tribe actually has such an army. In the sky, many heavenly emperors were shocked. Some heavenly emperors attacked the heaven-crushing army. However, some people from the heaven-crushing army attacked those heavenly emperors. Some heavenly emperors were killed. Terrifying, truly terrifying. Even heavenly emperors were killed in an instant. You actually want to attack the heaven-crushing army? You overestimate yourself. Some heavenly emperors from the evil god tribe sneered. The heaven-crushing army was the most terrifying army in the ancient legends of the evil god tribe. This army only had 100,000 people, but they were all heavenly emperors and above. Among them, 5,000 were heavenly emperors and above. 95,000 heavenly emperors and 5,000 heavenly emperors. How powerful was this force? It's the heaven-crushing army. Damn it, the expressions of the demigods from the heaven realm changed drastically. Set up the formation. At this moment, the commander of the heaven-crushing army gave the order. Immediately, the 100,000 heaven-crushing army soldiers started to form a large formation. Some of them flew into the sky, while others stayed on the ground. They formed a strange arrangement. Their auras intersected and their power merged. An incomparably huge giant appeared between heaven and earth. This giant was too big. It was indomitable, and it was several times bigger than the giant Sioux tribe. Some of the 100,000 heaven-crushing army soldiers were at the head of this giant, while others were at the limbs of this giant. Their power gathered to form this giant. Boom! This giant took a step forward, and it covered the sky as it stomped toward the heaven realm army. Not good. Long Chen, Huang Ling, and the others were within the range of this giant's foot. That kind of pressure was too terrifying, and they couldn't resist it at all. Once it stomped down, they would be turned into ashes. Are we going to die here? Long Chen, Huang Ling, and the others couldn't help but have this thought. However, at this moment, transparent bubbles suddenly appeared on their bodies, enveloping them. Then their bodies shook and they disappeared. Boom! The giant foot stomped down, and thousands of Heaven Realm elites were turned into ashes. Chapter 2550. Huang Ling, Long Chen, and the others looked at the Heaven Realm elite that had been stomped to death in the distance, their faces pale. If they had been there, they would have probably died as well. Bubbles, you've saved us again. They looked at a little girl. It was Bubble. Just now it was Bubble who had saved them and moved them out of that area. Too powerful. I was almost blocked by that power and couldn't save you. A look of dread appeared on Bubble's face. Boom! After the giant stomped his foot, he punched out. This punch was not aimed at the ground, but at the sky, at the Heaven Realm elites who were fighting. The giant fist smashed through the sky, and the void kept exploding. The scene was extremely terrifying. Block it. At least 100 heavenly emperors attacked together, using their strongest attack to block this punch. Boom! 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 Dense explosions rang out continuously. However, the attacks of 100 heavenly emperors were completely useless. They were destroyed by a single punch. Like fireworks, the 100 heavenly emperors retreated frantically. Dozens of heavenly emperors' bodies even exploded, and they died on the spot. Terrifying, too terrifying. Damn it! Some of the Heaven Realm demigods were furious. They wanted to withdraw and block the heaven-crushing army, but the demigods of the evil god tribe held them back. Finally, Two demigods used all their strength to shake off their opponents and charge toward the heaven-crushing army. Kill! The two demigods attacked with all their strength, using two moves. A long spear pierced through the sky and charged toward the giant formed by the heaven-crushing army. In addition, there was a battle sword that lit up the sky and split heaven and earth in half. When the demigods attacked, their power was shocking. Boom! Boom! The giant was very direct. He punched out twice and attacked the two demigods. A terrifying explosion occurred between heaven and earth. The long spear and the battle sword shook violently and were sent flying. The two heaven realm demigods also retreated frantically. Their faces were pale, and blood seeped from the corners of their mouths. Powerful, too powerful. The battle formation formed by the heaven-crushing army was unbelievably powerful. The two demigods were forced back with one attack and were severely injured. You want to fight against the heaven-crushing army with just the two of you? You overestimate yourselves. A demigod from the evil god race sneered. With a flash, he appeared in front of the demigod from the heaven realm. They were very clear that there were also demigods overseeing the heaven-crushing army. Semi-god, peak heavenly emperor, 6-star heavenly emperor, 5-star heavenly emperor. There were experts of all levels, and they formed a great formation. It was simply too powerful. It was not something that one or two demigods could contend against. However, they wouldn't allow the demigods of the heaven realm to obstruct the heaven-crushing army. Boom! The giant wanted to continue attacking and kill the experts of the heaven realm. At this moment, a dozen or so white-haired elders dashed over at high speed from the distance. They instantly neared the heaven-crushing army. Suppress! More than a dozen white-haired old men shouted in unison, bursting forth with incomparably powerful auras. Of these dozen or so elders, the weakest was a peak heavenly emperor. Among them, there was even a demigod-level existence. They were all elders of the purgatory realm. Following that, their bodies started to shine, and 9 steels flew out from their bodies. Prison suppressing steel. There were 9 purgatory suppressing steels, 1 main steel, and 8 auxiliary steels. As soon as the 9 purgatory suppressing steels flew out, they rapidly grew in size. They were even larger than mountains. The 9 purgatory suppressing steels formed a purgatory suppressing formation and pressed down on the giant formed by the heaven-crushing army. The giant also punched at the purgatory suppressing steels. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out. The purgatory suppressing steels trembled and flew back. However, the giant formed by the heaven-crushing army also trembled and retreated continuously. They blocked it. The purgatory suppressing steels blocked the giant. Both sides were evenly matched. The heaven realm army was very excited, and their morale was greatly boosted. Purgatory suppressing steels, damn it! The old king of the evil god tribe, the number 1 king, and the others were also furious. The 9 intact purgatory suppressing steels exploded with astonishing power and blocked the heaven-crushing army. Roar! The giant let out a roar. It stomped on the ground and continuously punched out with its fists. Suppress! The dozen or so elders of the purgatory realm controlled the purgatory suppressing steels together and continued to suppress the heaven-crushing army. The two sides continuously clashed, and the entire area shook continuously. Both sides were in a state of anxiety, and it was difficult to determine the victor. Emoku, let's see what else you can do now. Ancestral Gragon's voice rang in the ears of the other race's divine ancestor. The other race's divine ancestor's expression turned ugly. Then, a cold light burst out from his eyes. Ancestral Gragon, have you forgotten about Shah Exayan? Even if the others are blocked, so what? Once Shah Exayan appears, all of your efforts will be in vain. The other race's divine ancestor sneered. Ancestral Gragon's expression also turned serious. What he was most worried about was divine ancestor Shah Exayan. Shah Exayan had not appeared yet. He was probably using the time to heal his injuries. Once he recovered, who could stop him? Ancestral Gragon's only hope was Lu Ming. He hoped that Lu Ming could quickly break through. Ancestral Gragon, why aren't you attacking? The other race's divine ancestor suddenly said. Ancestral Gragon's eyes flickered, but he did not speak. You're trying to stall for time, right? You want to wait for Lu Ming to break through. If not, you'll definitely fight me to the death. Only by killing me or injuring me will you have a chance to stop Sha Exen. However, you're not attacking now. Hee hee. The other race's divine ancestor laughed coldly. He could tell what Ancestral Gragon was thinking. Ancestral Gragon remained silent. He knew that he could not fool the other race's divine ancestor. However, Lu Ming cultivates the Tao of the ruler. It won't be easy for him to break through in a place like the Heaven Realm. Even so, I won't give you a chance. Despair, Ancestral Gragon. The other race's divine ancestor said coldly. With a flicker, he disappeared into the void and headed toward the Heaven Realm. Roar! Ancestral Gragon let out a dragon roar and transformed into his true form. He tore through the void and charged toward the other race's divine ancestor. Bang! The two clashed in the eternal darkness, resulting in terrifying shock waves. Fortunately, they were clashing in the darkness. If they were outside, it would have destroyed the heavens and earth. Kill! Ancestral Gragon roared and unleashed his full strength. He twisted his enormous body and charged toward the other race's divine ancestor at a shocking speed. The other race's divine ancestor was tall and muscular. His golden hair fluttered in the wind, and his 3 eyes flickered. He was not weak at all. He began to fight the other race's divine ancestor. They had fought to the death in the ancient times. That battle had been so intense that both of them had damaged their life force. Therefore, they knew each other's moves like the back of their hands. It was difficult to determine the victor in a short time. Ancestral Gragon, you can't stop me. You sealed the heavens for so long, but it's all for naught. All of you will die. The other race's divine ancestor roared. In the blink of an eye, he had exchanged a few hundred moves with Ancestral Gragon. Ancestral Gragon did not say a word. Chapter 2551. Sha Exan, if you don't strike now, when are you going to strike? The voice of the divine ancestor was transmitted back to the fiend god realm. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from the sacred mountain of the fiend god realm as a blood-red beam of light shot into the sky. Following this, a figure appeared in the blood-red beam of light. It was a skinny old man wearing a blood-red robe. His blood-red hair danced in the wind as he emitted a terrifying, murderous intent. It was as if the murderous intent was going to kill every living thing in the world. Kill, kill, kill. Kill every living thing in the Heaven Realm. A bone-chilling voice came from the old man's mouth. Sha Exan. Ancestral Gragon's face turned ugly. With his cultivation, he could easily tell that Sha Exan had reached the martial god realm and possessed the strength of a martial god, even though he had yet to recover to his peak. Now that the fiend god tribe had an additional martial god, no one could stop them. Even though the half-martial god realm was only a step away from the martial god realm, the difference between their strength was like heaven and earth. Even if 10 or 20 half-gods teamed up, they would still be no match for a martial god. Whoosh! Saint Ancestor Sha Exan tore the void apart and appeared on the battlefield of Two World City. His aura burst out from his body and filled the area, crushing everyone's hearts. It's Sha Exan! The people of the Fiend God tribe were overjoyed. On the other hand, the people of the Heaven Realm were startled. Even though many of them had never heard of Sha Exan's name, the aura that he emitted was too terrifying and irresistible. It was even more terrifying than that of a half-god. Damn it, Sha Exan has recovered. Emperor Rebellious and the others were startled as they exclaimed, "Ha ha ha, you're all doomed. Sha Exan has recovered and the Heaven Realm will be destroyed. How are you going to stop him?" The old kings of the Fiend God tribe burst out laughing. "Kill!" Shah Eksayan yelled as a boundless murderous intent burst out and swept across the area like a shockwave. Puff! Puff! Many experts of the heaven realm spat out mouthfuls of blood. Some of them fell to the ground after spitting out mouthfuls of blood and stopped breathing. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Some of them went crazy, roaring madly. Their eyes were bloodshot as they crazily attacked their comrades. However, the members of the evil god race were completely fine. Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan had caused a huge loss to the heaven realm with a single roar. He had not even made a move yet. Many people's morale plummeted. They revealed terrified expressions and even began to retreat. After killing a large number of beings from the heaven realm, Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan took a deep breath and sucked in an endless amount of blood chi into his mouth. His killing intent grew even stronger. His blood-red eyes scanned the surroundings before landing on the prison-suppressing monument. "Hell-suppressing steel, you old bastard. This time, I'm going to completely destroy the hell-suppressing steel you left behind. And all of your descendants. They're all going to die and become my nourishment." An ice-cold, ear-piercing voice sounded. In the past, Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan, an old ancestor Hell Protector, had fought to the death. However, Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan managed to grab hold of the opportunity to send a sliver of his bloodline into the body of a human and lay dormant. He planned to awaken it one day. However, old ancestor Hell Protector saw through his intention and sent the spirit of the prison-suppressing monument into the human's body to lay dormant. It wasn't hard to figure out that the human was Lu Ming's ancestor. He was an ancestor from the primordial era. After a long time in Lu Ming's generation, the prison-suppressing monument and Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan's bloodline were both awakened in Lu Ming's body. However, the prison-suppressing monument was still suppressing him, preventing him from devouring Lu Ming and replacing Lu Ming. Therefore, the person that Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan hated the most was old ancestor Hell Protector. Seeing the prison-suppressing monument, one could imagine how he felt. "Kill!" Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan charged towards the prison-suppressing monument. He stretched out his hand and turned it into a gigantic palm that slapped towards the prison-suppressing monument. Boom! The 9 prison-suppressing monuments shook violently and were sent flying backwards. The dozen elders of the prison-suppressing world trembled violently and were forced to retreat as they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Although Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan had not fully recovered, he had regained the strength of a martial god. His battle prowess was even greater than the giant formed by the heaven-shattering army. With one move, he had injured more than a dozen elders of the prison-suppressing world. After Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan attacked with one move, he continued to attack with another. At the same time, the giant formed by the heaven-shattering army attacked as well. Together with Saint Ancestor Shah Eksayan, they wanted to destroy the prison-suppressing monument. "Get ready," said an elder of the prison-suppressing world. He was a half-god. Naturally, there was more than one half-god from the prison-suppressing world. However, a few of them were in the sky, teaming up with the half-gods from the heaven world to fight the old king of the evil god tribe. All right. The other elders of the prison-suppressing world looked determined. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, the auras of the elders of the prison-suppressing world grew stronger. A blood-red light radiated from their bodies as if they were burning. Then the elders of the prison-suppressing world turned into streaks of blood-red light and flew into the prison-suppressing monument. The prison-suppressing monument shook violently and shone brightly. In the end, the 9 prison-suppressing monuments merged into one. Its size was 10 times larger than before. Elders, many people of the prison-suppressing world on the battlefield, could not help but cry out in sorrow when they saw this. They knew that the elders had burned their own bodies and used their blood essences to activate the prison-suppressing monument. They wanted to unleash the greatest power of the prison-suppressing monument. As for themselves, they had completely perished. Boom! The giant formed by the heaven-shattering army punched the prison-suppressing monument. However, it was pushed back by a powerful force. At the same time, a figure appeared on the prison-suppressing monument. It was the appearance of an old man. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being, and his aura was majestic. Patriarch! It's the Patriarch! Someone from the prison-suppressing world exclaimed. Many people of the prison-suppressing world had seen the portrait of the prison-suppressing world's Patriarch. This elder looked exactly like the prison-suppressing world's Patriarch. Hee, prison-suppressing world's Patriarch. You're just an indestructible imprint on the prison-suppressing monument. Today, I'll destroy you completely. Saint Ancestor Shah Exian sneered. He stepped out and charged toward the prison-suppressing monument. The prison-suppressing monument's Patriarch stepped out and charged toward Saint Ancestor Shah Exian. The two of them collided violently, causing a loud explosion. At the same time, the prison-suppressing monument flew toward the heaven-shattering army and suppressed them. In an instant, the heaven-shattering army and Saint Ancestor Shah Exian were both blocked. This greatly boosted the morale of the heaven world's Patriarch. Hee, you think a mere imprint can stop me? What a joke! Saint Ancestor Shah Exian sneered. A blood-red bead appeared in his hand. It emitted a strong bloody aura as it charged toward the prison-suppressing world's Patriarch. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows. The prison-suppressing world's Patriarch was only an imprint. Moreover, the prison-suppressing monument was going to deal with the heaven-shattering army. After dozens of blows, he was completely suppressed by Saint Ancestor Shah Exian. If this continued, he would be defeated sooner or later. Chapter 2552. In the blink of an eye, another dozen moves were exchanged. Bam! The Hell Protector Old Ancestor's imprint was no match for the Saint Ancestor Shah Exian. His body turned illusory as if he was going to fall apart at any moment. Not good. The faces of the heaven realm beings who witnessed all of this were extremely ugly, revealing looks of despair. Could it be that no one could stop the Saint Ancestor Shah Exian? Was the heaven realm destined to be defeated and destroyed? They were unwilling to accept this, but their strength was limited. Die, Hell Protector, old ghost! Saint Ancestor Shah Exian roared. His aura grew stronger as he attacked the Hell Protector Old Ancestor. Bam! The Hell Protector Old Ancestor was hit again. His body almost fell apart as his aura weakened. Left with no choice, the Hell Protector Old Ancestor could only summon the Hell Protector Steel to block the Saint Ancestor Shah Exian. However, the heaven-shattering army had no opponent. Roar! The giant formed by the heaven-shattering army roared as it charged toward the Hell Protector Old Ancestor. The Hell Protector Old Ancestor's imprint merged with the Hell Protector Steel to block the giant formed by the heaven-shattering army. However, it was still no match for the Hell Protector Old Ancestor. Boom! Boom! The Hell Protector Steel was sent flying as it kept shaking. Crack! A sound came from the Hell Protector Steel, which shocked everyone. The Hell Protector Steel could not hold on any longer. A crack appeared on it. Hee, shatter! Shatter! I want to shatter you completely. The Saint Ancestor Shah Exian laughed coldly. Everyone in the heaven realm had a heavy heart. Lu Ming, the ancestral Gragon, sighed. Lu Ming had not broken through yet. Ancestral Gragon, your defeat is certain. The other race divine ancestor laughed coldly. On the peak of the Dragon Emperor Peak, Lu Ming was still sitting cross-legged. His aura was fluctuating as he cultivated wholeheartedly. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the sky. It was Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming, I hope you can make it in time. I will buy time for you, Xian Yanqing said softly. Then he turned around and disappeared. On the battlefield of the two-world city, the Hell Protector Old Ancestor Shah Exian and the heaven-shattering army worked together. The Hell Protector Steel was hit a few more times. The prison-suppressing steel was damaged, and its power was even weaker. It was even less able to withstand the attacks of Saint Ancestor Sha Xian and the heaven-crushing army. Shatter! Shatter for me, old ghost Genyu. I want the only evidence you left in this world to disappear. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian burst out laughing. A bloody glow spread out from his body and turned into streams of bloody sword light that slashed at the spirit-suppressing monument. At the same time, the blood bead he controlled also burst out rays of bloody light with astonishing power. However, at this moment, boundless black light suddenly appeared above divine Ancestor Sha Xian's head. It turned into a huge black lotus and pressed down on divine Ancestor Sha Xian. You want to attack me? You're courting death. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian snorted and waved his hand. A blood-red sword ray shot out and struck the black lotus. Boom! Following a loud explosion, the black lotus was sent flying. However, it did not crumble as Saint Ancestor Sha Xian had expected. The black lotus flew backward, and in the next moment, a figure appeared on the lotus. She was a young woman in a long black dress. Her beauty was unparalleled in her generation, and she was absolutely stunning. He blocked it. He actually blocked Saint Ancestor Killer Heart's attack. Many people were shocked. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian was a martial god. Even a casual attack from him could not be blocked by an ordinary person. Even a half-deity would find it difficult to block it. However, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's attack had been blocked. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian was stunned. Cold light then filled his eyes. Blood chi gathered around him and turned into a shocking blood sword that slashed at the black lotus. Disperse! A crisp sound was heard. The black lotus suddenly dispersed and turned into black petals. Each petal turned into a stream of sword chi and attacked Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's blood sword. Clang! Clang! It was as if there were many divine swords clashing against each other in the area. The sound of swords clashing resounded throughout the land. Although the black sword chi continued to crumble, the blood-colored sword light unleashed by sacred Ancestor Sha Xian would also weaken slightly after each black sword chi was destroyed. When the last black sword chi crumbled, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's blood sword chi had lost 10% of its power and was easily blocked by the woman. She blocked it again. This time, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian is serious. Many people were shocked. Who is this woman? She is so powerful that she can block Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's attack. I know. She is Xian Yinqing, Lu Ming's wife. Xian Yinqing. What? Lu Ming's wife is so powerful. Countless people were deeply shocked. Many people knew about Lu Ming's combat strength. Previously, he was able to fight against the two half-deities of the foreign tribes. He was unparalleled and outstanding. However, his wife was even more terrifying now. She was able to fight against Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. This was too shocking. How is this possible? She is only a half-deity. How can she block Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's attack? The number one king and the other old kings were deeply shaken. They could see that Xian Yinqing was a half-deity. However, her combat strength was shockingly powerful and far above theirs. That's right. Xian Yinqing's cultivation had reached the half-deity realm. Xian Yinqing had been in Yellow Spring Island for close to 200 years. With the help of the Fruit of Life, Xian Yinqing's cultivation had reached the half-deity realm. Moreover, Xian Yinqing's combat strength was far more powerful than ordinary people. Previously, when Xian Yinqing was a 5-star heavenly emperor, she was able to suppress a peak heavenly emperor. Now that Xian Yinqing had reached the half-deity realm, her combat strength was naturally higher than other half-deities. They were not the only ones who were shocked. Even the foreign tribe's divine ancestor and ancestral dragon were shocked. She is so powerful. On the battlefield, Huang Ling and the Autumn Moon sighed as they looked at Xian Yinqing. Ah, kill, kill, kill. The fact that Xian Yanqing had blocked two of Saint Ancestor Sha Xan's attacks had further ignited his killing intent and ruthlessness. He roared crazily and charged toward Xian Yanqing, ignoring the prison-suppressing steel. Meanwhile, the prison-suppressing steel was engaged in a fierce battle with the heaven-crushing army. Bam! Bam! Xian Yanqing and divine ancestor Sha Xian exchanged a few more blows. Although Xian Yanqing was at a disadvantage and was forced to retreat, he still managed to block divine ancestor Sha Xian's attacks. Many people were shocked. They knew that Xian Yanqing's combat strength was truly shocking. It had already surpassed the other half-deities. Although he was still not a match for divine ancestor Sha Xian, he was able to exchange blows with him. If it were any other half-deities, they would have been killed instantly by divine ancestor Sha Xian. Die. Divine ancestor Sha Xian became even more frenzied as he threw out the blood-red bead in his hand. The blood-red bead was a weapon that surpassed a Heaven Dao weapon. Under the control of divine ancestor Sha Xian, its power was terrifying. Break! Xian Yanqing shouted and formed a seal with her fingers. Countless black lotuses appeared around her. These black lotuses turned into rays of sword light and slashed toward divine ancestor Sha Xian. Chapter 2553. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's bead was as big as a mountain. It shot out beams of blood-red light that were extremely powerful. Xian Yanqing gathered countless lotus sword qi to fight against Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. However, Xian Yanqing was no match for Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. The lotus sword qi was defeated and a beam of blood-red light almost hit Xian Yanqing. She quickly retreated. Who are you? You're not from this world. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian stared at Xian Yanqing. His blood-red eyes were filled with shock. As soon as he attacked, he could feel that Xian Yanqing's cultivation technique and the power that he controlled were not from this world. You don't have the right to know who I am, Xian Yanqing said coldly. No matter who you are, no one in this world will know if I kill you. Kill! Saint Ancestor Sha Xian shouted. The blood-red light on his body became even more intense. The blood-red light entered the blood-red bead, causing it to vibrate violently. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a furious roar came from the blood-red bead, following which, a huge evil demon crawled out from the blood-red bead. This evil demon was covered in blood-red scales. It had a wide mouth with sharp fangs and was filled with murderous intent. Behind his back was a pair of blood-red wings. When they spread out, they covered the entire sky. Kill! The evil demon roared and charged toward Xian Yanqing. You're just an evil demon from the abyss. Humph! You're just an insignificant evil demon, Xian Yanqing said coldly. Beams of cold sword light appeared around her body and shot toward the blood-red evil demon. Roar! The evil demon roared and flapped its wings. A gust of wind swept toward Xian Yanqing. On the other side, Saint Ancestor Sha Xian also made his move. A blood-red sword light formed and slashed toward Xian Yanqing. Facing the attacks from both sides, Xian Yanqing was at a disadvantage. Her sword light was quickly defeated. Bam! Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's blood-red sword light slashed toward Xian Yanqing. Although Xian Yanqing formed a black lotus in time to protect herself, she was still sent flying. Her body trembled and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Ancestral Gragon, you have no hope. If you don't become a martial god, all your efforts will be in vain. In the dark space, he and Ancestral Dragon were locked in a fierce battle. It would be difficult to determine the outcome in a short period of time. Ancestral Dragon did not look pleased. He did not say a word. He continued Sha Xian's attacks. As for the hell-suppressing steel, it was currently locked in battle with the heaven-crushing army because it had been severely damaged. I don't care if you die or not. You will die. I will die. Sacred Ancestor Starkiller laughed heartily and controlled the blood-red fiend to attack Xian Yanqing. But at this moment, the void split open, and a milky white sword light slashed towards the demon. The sword light was filled with sacred light. Its power was shocking. The evil demon was caught off guard and was hit by the sword light. One of its wings was severed. The evil demon screamed. The place where its wings were severed kept emitting sizzling sounds. It seemed like the sword light was effective against it. Sacred light? Damn it, what's going on? Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan was furious. A weak, evil demon. If it was in the past, I would have turned him into ashes with a puff of my breath. A cold, arrogant voice was heard. Then a figure appeared in the sky. It was a woman in a white dress. She looked exactly like Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinjuan. You? Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan looked at Xian Yinjuan and Xian Yinqing. His eyes were filled with astonishment. I didn't expect your cultivation to rise to the half-martial god realm so quickly after devouring the memories of your past life. I'm surprised. Xian Yinjuan didn't look at Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan. Instead, she looked at Xian Yinqing and transmitted her voice. I won't be left behind by you. I won't let you do it alone. Xian Yinqing replied. Is that so? You're pretty confident. However, let's deal with this guy first. Xian Yinjuan chuckled. Her body emitted a white sacred light. She looked like a goddess descending to the world, pure and holy. Kill. I don't care how many of you come. All of you must die. Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan roared. He controlled the evil demon and himself to attack Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinjuan pressed her hand forward. Countless white lotuses appeared in the sky. They turned into sword qi and slashed at Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan. Her cultivation was also in the half-martial god realm. Her battle strength was no weaker than Xian Yinqing's. Moreover, her attacking style was very similar to Xian Yinqing's. When Xian Yinjuan attacked, Xian Yinqing attacked as well. The two of them joined forces to fight Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan. Boom! 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 The battle reached a boiling point. Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan was blocked by Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. For a moment, both sides were evenly matched. They'd blocked it. Countless people on the battlefield were shocked when they saw the scene. However, both sides had different thoughts. The evil god tribe was shocked. They found it hard to accept. On the other hand, the heaven world was ecstatic. Ha! I didn't expect that there would be such an expert in the heaven world. Good. Emperor Rebellious laughed. The number 1 king's face was ugly. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan's battle strength was too strong. They were far stronger than ordinary half-martial gods. The two of them joined forces to block Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan's attack. Such strength was too terrifying. In the heaven world, they could be said to be the strongest experts other than Ancestor Gragon. However, they had never heard of them before. However, it did not matter. As long as they were from the heaven world, it would be fine. Ha, Moko. It seems like things are out of your control. Ancestor Gragon laughed. This was a pleasant surprise. Originally, he had placed all his hopes on Lu Ming. He did not expect that there would be 2 such experts in the heaven world. As long as they could hold Saint Ancestor Shah-Eksan back and wait for Lu Ming to break through, they would have a great chance of winning. The evil god realm and the heaven world had been at war for countless years. Damn it, how is this possible? The foreign tribe's divine ancestor roared. He was extremely shocked. How could there be 2 such experts in the heaven world? They looked like sisters, but their battle strength was so strong. There was no news about them before. It was as if they had appeared out of nowhere. Lu Ming's wife. It's that Lu Ming again. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor was furious. The battle on the battlefield entered a stalemate. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was not great. The battle was fierce, and there were people dying at every moment. In the ultimate ruins battlefield, the Titan Longhorn Bull and the foreign tribe's kings were fighting. It was difficult to determine the victor. Suppress, I'll suppress. Suppress him for me. Dandan transformed into his true form. He was huge and filled with runes. His battle strength was shocking. He was fighting 2 foreign tribes' kings alone and was not at a disadvantage. In fact, he even had the upper hand. That old turtle, I didn't expect him to be so strong after breaking through to the half-martial god realm. Not far away, the Titan Longhorn Bull thought unhappily. In the Dragon Emperor Peak, Lu Ming had been cultivating. Boom! Suddenly, a shocking aura surged from Lu Ming's body. His eyes opened. Chapter 2554. Lu Ming's aura soared into the sky like a spear that was about to pierce through heaven and earth. Break for me! Lu Ming shouted as his body emitted a dazzling purple-gold light. He wanted to break through the shackles and become a heavenly emperor. However, just as Lu Ming unleashed his aura, all around him, within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, a colorful glow suddenly appeared. The light enveloped Lu Ming, forming a terrifying pressure that pressed down on Lu Ming, restraining Lu Ming. This was the power of the Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao wanted to stop Lu Ming from breaking through. The Tao of Sovereign was too terrifying. It shouldn't have appeared in places like the Heavenly Domain or the Evil God Realm, because once the Tao of Sovereign entered the Heavenly Emperor Realm, one would be able to dominate heaven and earth, even the Heavenly Tao. This was not allowed by the Heavenly Tao. It wanted to stop it. The terrifying pressure continued to press down on Lu Ming, even forming invisible chains that wrapped around Lu Ming's body. Break, break! Lu Ming shouted as he exerted all his strength and struggled with all his might. Bam! 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 The invisible chains on Lu Ming's body continued to shatter. However, after the chains shattered, even more chains appeared. Buzz! Lu Ming's muscles and bones began to vibrate rapidly. The frequency of vibrations exceeded 50 billion times per second. Such violent vibrations produced a terrifying power that shattered the invisible chains that wrapped around his body. At the same time, Lu Ming formed a long spear in his hand with the power of the Sovereign. Buzz! The long spear vibrated and swept in all directions. Lu Ming wanted to break through the shackles of the Heavenly Tao. Whoosh! 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 Rays of spear light soared into the sky and swept in all directions. From afar, one could only see countless spear lights piercing holes in heaven and earth. It's starting to break through. In the distant dark void, the ancestral Gragon sensed it immediately and revealed a look of joy. At the same time, the foreign race's divine ancestor also sensed it, and his face darkened. It's not that easy to break through the Tao of Sovereign in the heavenly domain. The heavenly Tao doesn't allow it. The foreign race's divine ancestor said coldly, "Really?" At the same time, he stretched out a dragon claw to meet the outsider's sacred ancestor's attack. On the Dragon Emperor Peak, Lu Ming's spear glow grew stronger and stronger. As he executed the battle character formula, the power of each of his moves was enhanced. Each of his moves was extremely terrifying, constantly blasting away the power of the Heavenly Tao. It's not enough. It's still not enough. I have to trigger double combat power. Lu Ming's mind raced. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to completely break through the shackles of the Heavenly Tao. If that was the case, he would not be able to truly break through. Lu Ming kept unleashing the battle formula, hoping to trigger the double combat power. The probability of Lu Ming triggering the double combat strength effect was about 1 in 10. After triggering it about 8 or 9 times, suddenly Lu Ming felt boundless battle intent erupt from his body. This battle intent transformed into power, greatly increasing Lu Ming's strength. The battle character formula had been successfully activated. Double combat power. Whoa! The long spear in Lu Ming's hand swept out, and the power of the Heavenly Tao crumbled continuously. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then Lu Ming's long spear shook and countless spear rays shot out, piercing through the void and breaking the power of the heavenly Tao. Boom! Lu Ming's aura grew stronger. How is this possible? In the dark void, the foreign tribe's divine ancestor widened his eyes in disbelief. Lu Ming was about to break through the shackles of the heavenly Tao. Ha ha ha! The ancestral dragon laughed maniacally. Sha Xan, quickly deal with those two bitches. Go and kill Lu Ming. Something's wrong. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor hurriedly sent a message to the divine ancestor. At this moment, the divine ancestor was still locked in a fierce battle with Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Hearing the divine ancestor's message, a vicious look flashed across the divine ancestor's eyes. Those two bitches dare to block me? Die! Die! The divine ancestor roared, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Boundless blood-red light spread out, burning fiercely. Burn your divine power! The ancestral dragon was enraged. The divine ancestor had yet to recover from his injuries, as he did not have enough time. He might be able to recover in a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years. Therefore, the divine ancestor's strength had barely reached the martial god realm. However, the divine ancestor had decided to burn his divine power regardless of the consequences. As a result, his strength was able to reach his peak within a short period of time. The divine ancestor's strength skyrocketed as he burned his divine power. He executed 2 consecutive slashes with shocking might. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan were startled. They immediately set up defenses in front of them. However, their defenses were unable to resist the divine ancestor's attack. They were shattered instantly. Their figures shuddered violently as they were sent flying over 10,000 li away. Blood poured out from their mouths as their figures shuddered. You two bitches trying to stop me? Die! The divine ancestor withdrew the demon. The blood-red glow formed a sword as he slashed at Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan defended themselves with all their might. They were not aiming for success, but they were hoping to avoid making any mistakes. However, the divine ancestor who had recovered to his peak was indeed powerful. He was on par with the ancestral dragon and the divine ancestor of the foreign tribes. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan were only half gods after all. They were no match for the divine ancestor at his peak. After a few exchanges, they were sent flying again. The hearts of the people from the heaven realm sank. At this rate, the situation was not looking good. He is burning his divine power. He won't be able to hold on for long. As long as we can hold him off for a while, we will have a chance of winning. Xian Yinqing, do you still remember the dark sacred light technique? Xian Yinjuan transmitted his voice to Xian Yinqing. Yes. Xian Yinqing nodded. All right. Let's use the dark sacred light technique to set up a dark sacred light cage to hold him off for a while. Xian Yinjuan said. Xian Yinqing nodded. The two of them made their moves at the same time. Instead of retreating, they charged toward the divine ancestor. The moment they charged out, their bodies emitted a brilliant glow. The difference was that Xian Yinqing's body was covered in a boundless dark glow. Her body seemed to have turned into a black hole. It was pitch black and no one could see her figure. On the other hand, Xian Yinjuan's body was covered in a boundless white glow. It was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. Many people could not open their eyes. Dark sacred light technique. 2 crisp voices could be heard at the same time. Immediately, boundless black and white glows shrouded the divine ancestor. The speed of the glows was unbelievably fast. They immediately shrouded the divine ancestor. Following this, the black and white glows intertwined with each other like threads, forming a cage. This was the dark sacred light cage. It was a terrifying secret technique that required the combined efforts of Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. Break it! Divine ancestor Sha Xan roared. A blood-red sword light cut through the void and slashed at the dark sacred light cage. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion. However, Saint Ancestor Shah Xian's sword did not break the dark sacred light cage. Instead, it only caused the dark sacred light cage to shake violently. Chapter 2555 X to the power of 8 carat 1 Z carat 0 degrees M translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Divine Ancestor Shixin was enraged by the fact that his sword had failed to break the cage. Although burning his divine power in this manner was extremely taxing on him and would leave behind terrible aftereffects, he could not care less about that now. As long as he could flatten the celestial world and successfully split open the sky, the celestial beings would definitely bestow him treasures. His injuries and aftereffects were nothing to him. He held the blood-red sword in his hand and slashed at the dark holy light cage. Boom! Boom! The dark holy light cage shook violently. Every time divine ancestor Shah Xian's sword slashed at it, Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan would tremble and turn pale. Clearly, divine ancestor Shah Xian's attacks were also a great burden to them. However, they gritted their teeth and persevered. Now, it was time to see who could hold on. Whoever could hold on would be the winner. Break! 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 Divine ancestor Shah Xian attacked wildly. In an instant, he could release hundreds of swords. Both sides were in a stalemate. Lu Ming, on the other hand, was progressing smoothly. He had activated double combat strength, and his combat strength skyrocketed. He continued to attack the Heavenly Tao's power, shattering the shackles of the Heavenly Tao. Finally, the long spear spun and swept across the sky, completely blasting the Heavenly Tao's power away. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's aura exploded and reached its peak. Break! Lu Ming roared. His long hair fluttered in the wind. Then there was a loud explosion in his body. He had broken through a bottleneck. His cultivation level had risen to a whole new level. That was the Heavenly Emperor realm. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to be in control of everything. The entire celestial world was under his control. He could also sense the battle in the Ultimate Ruins battlefield and Two-World City. Has the final battle begun? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Previously, he had been wholeheartedly cultivating and trying to break through to the next realm without any distractions. Who would have thought that the final battle would have already broken out? Shaoqing mid-autumn moon, Xiang Xiang, Lu Ming sensed that Xian Yinqing, Xiang Xiang, and the others were fine. Lu Ming felt relieved. Following this, Lu Ming waved his hand and countless D stones flew out. Although Lu Ming had broken through, his strength hadn't caught up. He had to absorb a large amount of energy and convert it into world energy and sovereign power. Bam, bam, bam. Countless godly stones exploded into pieces. Lu Ming couldn't care less about wasting resources now. What he wanted was to stabilize his cultivation base as soon as possible so that he could participate in the battle. Lu Ming absorbed the endless divine aura into his body and transformed it into the power of the world and the power of the master. Lu Ming's small world began to expand wildly. Not enough, far from enough. Speed up, Lu Ming growled and finally took out all the D stones on him. Piles of D stones exploded and were absorbed by Lu Ming. The energy Lu Ming needed to break through to the Heavenly Emperor realm was too shocking. The main thing was that a portion of the energy would be converted into sovereign power, which was the most energy-consuming. Lu Ming still had more than 10,000 Chaos Stones left. However, 10,000 Chaos Stones were a drop in the bucket for Lu Ming now. Therefore, Lu Ming had already given them to Lu Xiang Xiang, Ouying Moli, Bubbles, and the others. Lu Ming was now completely using D stones to cultivate. Fortunately, he had obtained a large number of D stones in the Yellow Spring world. Time continued to pass. Lu Ming's aura became stronger and more shocking. Of course, the number of D stones he devoured was also increasing. The battle in the Two-World City had also reached its climax. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan tried their best to stop Divine Ancestor Sha Xen, but under Divine Ancestor Sha Xen's frenzied attacks, their faces turned pale and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Sha Xen, it's too late. And this quickly. The other tribe Divine Ancestor sent a message to Divine Ancestor Sha Xen anxiously. He realized that Lu Ming was about to break through. Damn bitches! I will make sure you never reincarnate. Explode, explode! Divine Ancestor Sha Xen roared and took out the blood-red bead. Endless blood-red light flowed from his body into the bead. Whoa! The blood-red bead vibrated violently and emitted a dazzling blood-red light. Not good. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan's faces changed drastically. Boom! Then, the blood-colored bead exploded with a loud bang. This was a divine weapon that surpassed a Heaven Dao weapon. When it exploded, its power was unimaginable. Endless destructive power swept out in all directions and slammed into the dark, holy light cage. In an instant, the dark, holy light cage exploded. Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan's bodies were swept away by the force and were sent flying. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and were severely injured. Die! Divine Ancestor Sha Xen's eyes turned red as he charged toward Xian Yinqing with boundless killing intent. Whoosh! His terrifyingly withered hand grabbed at Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinqing was severely injured and could not dodge this attack. If he was hit, he would definitely die. At this critical moment, the space in front of Xian Yinqing suddenly split open. A long spear flew out and pierced toward Divine Ancestor Sha Xen's hand. Dong! The long spear pierced Divine Ancestor Sha Xen's hand. There was a loud explosion, and the long spear was sent flying. However, Divine Ancestor Sha Xen was also pushed back. There was a hole in his hand, and blood-red light was wriggling inside. His eyes were filled with astonishment. It should be known that he was now in the state of burning his divine power, and his combat strength had recovered to its peak. However, the spear just now had pierced his palm. He looked forward with his blood-red eyes. The space in front of him split open. A tall and slender young man in a black robe appeared behind Xian Yinqing. He grabbed Xian Yinqing's slender waist and pulled Xian Yinqing into his arms. This young man was none other than Lu Ming. He had refined 90% of the divine stones in his body and finally stabilized his cultivation at the Heavenly Emperor realm. Coincidentally, Divine Ancestor Sha Xen had destroyed Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan's dark sacred light cage. He did not hesitate to rush over. With his current cultivation, he could reach Two World City from Dragon Emperor Peak in an instant. Shao Qing, are you all right? Lu Ming asked with concern. Lu Ming, you're finally here. Xian Yinqing smiled. Shao Qing, take this fruit of life. A fruit of life appeared in Lu Ming's hand, and he gave it to Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinqing took it and swallowed it. His body shone brightly. Fruit of life, you still have. Seeing Lu Ming take out the fruit of life, Divine Ancestor Sha Xen's eyes were filled with greed. Do you want it? I have plenty of it. Lu Ming looked at Divine Ancestor Sha Xen and waved his hand. 9 fruits of life appeared in his hand. One of them flew toward Xian Yinjuan. Xian Yinjuan did not hesitate. He caught the fruit of life and swallowed it. His injuries healed quickly. So many fruits of life. Divine Ancestor Sha Xen was shocked. Old Tai, set a small goal. First carat, remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh, chapter 2556. X to the power of 8 carat 1, Z carat 0 degrees, M translator. Endless Fantasy translation editor. Endless Fantasy translation. Lu Ming had taken out 9 fruits of life in one go, including the one he had given to Xian Yinqing. He now had 10 fruits of life in total. Not only was the sacred ancestor Sha Xen shocked, even the sacred ancestor was dumbfounded. He clearly remembered that there were only 18 fruits of life on the Tree of Life. They had obtained 11, while the heaven realm had only obtained 7. Where did Lu Ming get so many fruits of life from? A fortunate encounter. Lu Ming must have had a fortunate encounter. The sacred ancestor yelled in jealousy. At the same time, he also realized why the Titan longhorn beetle, 9 lives demon silkworm, and the others had achieved the half-martial god realm. It must be because of the fruits of life that the Chaos Monarch and the others had recovered from their injuries. The thought made the sacred ancestor feel like vomiting blood. He had only managed to obtain 11 fruits of life, which was only enough for him and the sacred ancestor Sha Exen. He felt extremely gloomy when he thought about how Lu Ming had managed to obtain a large number of fruits of life, which had greatly increased the strength of the heaven realm. Meanwhile, the sacred ancestor Sha Exen was shocked when he saw the fruits of life, before his eyes were filled with greed. His injuries had yet to fully recover, and he was currently burning his god force, which further worsened his injuries. If he could obtain so many fruits of life, he would be able to recover in no time. Give it to me. Give me the fruits of life. The sacred ancestor, Sha Exen, yelled. Give it to you? Come and take it yourself. Lu Ming kept the fruits of life and held the great desolation spear in his hand. His aura grew stronger. Lu Ming, I didn't devour you. Now I'll destroy you. The sacred ancestor, Sha Exen, yelled. He turned into a crimson ray and charged at Lu Ming. Bang! A brilliant purple-golden glow burst out from Lu Ming's body as he unleashed the force of the world and the force of the ruler realm in his body. Following this, he thrust his spear forward. The great desolation spear rapidly turned into a spear glow and stabbed at the sacred ancestor Sha Exen. Dong! The two of them clashed head-on, forming a terrifying shockwave that rushed out in all directions. That part of the void completely exploded. The blood light shattered and Saint Ancestor Sha Exen retreated. Lu Ming also retracted his spear. What? In a head-on battle, Lu Ming blocked Sha Exen's attack. Oh my god, what did I just see? Could Lu Ming have become a god? How could this be? At this moment, regardless of whether it was the heaven realm or the evil god race, everyone was deeply astonished and stunned. Lu Ming was able to fight a martial god head-on. This was too shocking. The difference was that after the evil god tribe was astonished, they were filled with endless fear. As for the heaven realm, after the shock, they were filled with endless ecstasy. Ha ha ha! Emo, this time around, your evil god tribe will be annihilated. Ancestral Graygon laughed loudly, feeling extremely carefree. How is this possible? This is impossible. The outsider, sacred ancestor's heart was in turmoil. He found it hard to accept. He had planned and worked hard for countless years, but in the end, this was the outcome that he could not accept. If Lu Ming could fight Saint Ancestor Sha Exen, it would be too disadvantageous for them. After all, the heaven realm still had Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan. Sha Exen, is this all you've got? Today, the person that will be annihilated is you. Lu Ming swung his spear and took a step forward. His figure turned into a ray of light as he charged toward Saint Ancestor Sha Exen. Blood Sea Sword Art. Saint Ancestor Sha Exen roared as a blood sea appeared behind him. Countless blood-red sword rays flew out from the blood sea and slashed at Lu Ming. Ruler. Lu Ming executed the ruler's force to dominate the world. As the ruler's force was applied to the blood-red sword rays, the direction of the sword rays changed slightly. They did not manage to hit Lu Ming at all. Instead, they flew past Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming closed in on Saint Ancestor Sha Exen and swung his spear. The long spear ray swept across the blood sea. The blood sea collapsed as Saint Ancestor Sha Exen retreated hastily. Swoosh! Swoosh! The Great Baron's spear continued to pierce through the void. Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Sha Exen charged into the dark void. Now that Lu Ming had broken through to the Heavenly Emperor realm, his battle strength had increased tremendously. Combining all aspects, he was comparable to a martial god. He was not any weaker than the ancestral dragon or the other tribes' divine ancestors when they were at their peak. This was under the circumstance that Lu Ming had not triggered the double combat ability. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian charged into the dark void. They clashed a few times in the dark void, causing the dark void to churn. After Lu Ming broke through to the Heavenly Emperor realm, the double combat power effect of the battle character incantation had ended. Therefore, Lu Ming was only in an ordinary state now, not a state with double combat power. Lu Ming circulated the sovereign Tao to the maximum. The power of the sovereign and the sovereign Tao in his body roared. Lu Ming's sovereign Tao occupied more than half of his body. This was the key to Lu Ming's ability to fight against a martial god. In the future, as Lu Ming's cultivation base increased, the power of the sovereign Tao would also increase. Lu Ming estimated that when he reached the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm, all the power of the sovereign Tao in his body would be converted into the power of the sovereign Tao. At the same time, Lu Ming executed the battle character art. Although it did not trigger the double combat strength, Lu Ming's every move was shockingly powerful with the help of the battle character art. He was evenly matched with Saint Ancestor Sha Xian, who was in his peak state. In fact, Lu Ming was slightly stronger than Sha Xian. After Lu Ming and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian fought their way into the dark void, Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan's injuries were more or less healed with the help of the Fruit of Life. Xian Yanqing's eyes were cold as he swept his gaze across the battlefield. Then, numerous black lotuses appeared around him. They turned into streaks of sword qi and flew toward the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was still engaged in an intense battle with the prison-suppressing steel. However, the prison-suppressing steel had a trace of the prison-suppressing steel's power. After such a long battle, it was almost unable to hold on any longer. At this moment, Xian Yanqing made his move. It was really the right time. Roar! The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion stretched out a large hand and slammed it toward Xian Yanqing's sword qi. Bang! Bang! The sound of collisions rang out. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion trembled violently as it retreated continuously. The ground under its feet cracked continuously. In a moment of carelessness, it trampled a few hundred evil god tribe members who were unable to retreat in time to death. Xian Yanqing was able to exchange blows with Saint Elder Sha Xian, who possessed the battle prowess of a martial god. His strength was above that of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. Slash! Xian Yanqing shouted coldly. He waved his small hand, and boundless sword light gathered to form a gigantic black sword qi. This sword qi, once again, slashed toward the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion raised its fist to block this attack. However, this time, the giant's fist was directly sliced into two by the sword light. A large number of Heaven-Crushing Legion elites were caught in the fist. Their bodies exploded and they perished. In an instant, several hundred Heaven-Crushing Legion elites were killed, including a dozen or so Heavenly Emperors. The giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion retreated continuously. However, at this moment, a milky white sword light slashed down from the heavens. Xian Yinjuan had made his move. Pooh! The head of the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was directly severed. Another few hundred Heaven-Crushing Legion elites perished. In this way, the giant of the Heaven-Crushing Legion was directly scattered. The Great Formation had been broken. Old Tai, set a small goal. First carat, remember new 8th Chinese network. Square meter. Chapter 2557. X to the power of 8 carat 1 Z carat 0 degrees. M translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Once the Heaven-Crushing Army's formation was broken, it was difficult for them to gather their power and weave it together. Their battle prowess was instantly greatly reduced. Nearly 100,000 people frantically retreated, their hearts filled with shock. The heaven-crushing army's formation had always been invincible. Apart from the martial god, they didn't fear anyone else. However, facing Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan, they were defeated in just a few moves. Their formation was directly destroyed. "Don't panic. Gather and set up the formation," the commander of the heaven-crushing army roared. This person was a demigod, and he wanted to reassemble the heaven-crushing army and form a formation to resist Xian Yanqing and the others. However, just as he finished speaking, 5 black lotuses appeared around him out of thin air. Whoosh! 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 The lotuses spun, and their petals transformed into sharp sword qi that shot toward him. The commander's expression changed, and he waved the battle axe in his hand to block the attack. After a series of collisions, the heaven-shattering army commander's body shook violently. Cracks appeared on the heavenly Dao tool battle axe in his hand, and his chest had been pierced through by a beam of sword qi. His chest was pierced through, from front to back. He was severely injured, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His eyes were filled with shock. How could he be so strong? He was extremely terrified. No matter what, he was still a demigod, and he was known as an invincible elite. However, he had only exchanged one move with Xian Yanqing, and he had already been severely injured. Whoosh! In the next instant, Xian Yanqing's figure suddenly appeared beside him. Oh no! The commander of the heaven-crushing army was shocked, and he quickly retreated. However, it was already too late. A sword light flashed, and his head flew high into the air. In a battle of the same level, he didn't have the slightest ability to resist Xian Yanqing. Kill! Xian Yanqing's expression was cold and merciless. With a wave of his hand, boundless sword qi rushed toward the heaven-crushing army. The heaven-crushing army originally had 100,000 elites, 5,000 heavenly emperors, and 95,000 heavenly emperors. However, they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Xian Yanqing. Wherever the sword qi passed, the heaven-crushing legion's elites were pierced and killed. Whether it was a heavenly emperor or a great emperor, they were all the same. Even a peak heavenly emperor would find it difficult to block Xian Yanqing's attack. At the same time, Xian Yanjuan also made his move. His attack style was very similar to Xian Yanqing's. Wherever his milky white sword light passed, large swathes of heaven-crushing army elites were killed. This was a completely one-sided slaughter. The elites of the heaven-crushing legion were being harvested like wheat. No, damn it, no! As for the number 1 king of the outsiders, the old kings felt as if their hearts were about to bleed. The heaven-crushing legion was the strongest legion of the evil god tribe. So many elites had died, just like that. At the same time, they were extremely terrified. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan were practically unstoppable. After they finished killing the heaven-crushing army, wouldn't it be their turn? They had seen how demigods were unable to resist Xian Yanqing at all, and were almost instantly killed. If it were them, they wouldn't be too far behind. Divine Ancestor, what should we do? The number 1 king roared. His voice traveled far and wide through the dark void toward the Divine Ancestor. Retreat, form a formation, and defend with all your might, the Divine Ancestor said. At this moment, the Divine Ancestor was also extremely angry. He had never imagined that the battle would turn out like this. Before the battle, he had been very confident. On the surface, the evil god tribe had the upper hand in terms of low-level, mid-level, and high-level battle prowess. Moreover, he and the Divine Ancestor Sha Exan were martial gods. As long as they made a move, the battle would definitely be one-sided. They would definitely be able to flatten the heaven realm. However, after the battle, everything was beyond his expectations. At the beginning, the Titan Longhorn Beetle, 9 Lives Demonic Silkworm, World Divine Turtle, and the others appeared one after another. They had all broken through to the demigod realm and delayed a portion of the evil god tribe's forces. Then the Rebellious Emperor, and the others actually recovered from their injuries. What was even more unexpected was that Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan seemed to have appeared out of nowhere and held the divine ancestor Sha Xan back until Lu Ming had a breakthrough. Lu Ming, it's all because of Lu Ming, the divine ancestor yelled in his heart. All of this was because of Lu Ming and Lu Ming's fruits of life, the Titan longhorn beetle, and the 9 lives demonic silkworm's breakthroughs. The emperor, rebellious emperor, and the others also recovered because of Lu Ming's fruits of life. Xian Yanqing was even Lu Ming's wife. It was all because of Lu Ming that the battle had developed to this stage. Now they could only defend themselves and wait for the divine ancestor Sha Xan to kill Lu Ming or defeat the ancestral Gragon. Only then would they have a chance to turn the tables. At this thought, he couldn't help but look at the place where Lu Ming and the divine ancestor Sha Xan were fighting. His eyes widened. At this moment, Lu Ming had gained the upper hand and was suppressing the divine ancestor Sha Xan. Lu Ming and the divine ancestor Sha Xan had already exchanged a few hundred blows in the dark void. Lu Ming didn't activate the battle character manual to double his battle strength. He was fighting the divine ancestor Sha Xan in his normal state. However, Lu Ming was getting stronger as the battle went on. He had just broken through and wasn't familiar with using his power. As the battle progressed, he became more familiar with the sudden increase in power. Moreover, the battle character manual was amazing. No matter what kind of attack he used, his battle strength would increase tremendously. In addition, the divine ancestor Sha Xan was burning his divine power. The longer the battle went on, the weaker he became. Therefore, Lu Ming had the upper hand. Whoosh! Whoosh! The great barren spear in Lu Ming's hand danced like a dragon. Spear lights stabbed at the divine ancestor Sha Xan. The divine ancestor Sha Xan was forced to retreat and defend himself. Puff! The divine ancestor Sha Xan's body was pierced by Lu Ming's spear light. The divine ancestor Sha Xan tried his best to recover. Blood light wriggled as he tried to heal himself. However, at this moment, his expression changed drastically. Then his aura rapidly weakened. He hadn't recovered from his injuries and hadn't recovered to his peak state. He couldn't maintain his peak state for a long time by burning his divine power. Now that his divine power was almost depleted, his condition was deteriorating rapidly. Lu Ming wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. His eyes turned cold as he swung the great barren spear. Bam! The divine ancestor Sha Xan was sent flying. His body was almost split into 2. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and his aura weakened. Die! Lu Ming took a step forward and caught up with Saint Ancestor Sha Xan. The great barren spear vibrated, covered with the dazzling power of the ruler. It charged toward Saint Ancestor Sha Xan, intending to annihilate him completely. Although the divine ancestor Sha Xan retreated, he couldn't avoid the attack and was hit by Lu Ming. His body shattered into pieces and turned into a sea of blood. We're fine. Lu Ming stretched out his palms, and the purplish gold power of the master transformed into 2 huge palms. When they came together, the sea of blood was shrouded in their palms. Lu Ming was going to refine the divine ancestor Sha Xan with his sovereign power. No, Emoku, come and save me. The divine ancestor Sha Xan screamed in fear. He tried to break free, but he couldn't break free from the sovereign power. Lu Ming! The divine ancestor roared. His golden hair fluttered in the wind. He used all his strength to exchange a few blows with the ancestral dragon. Then he took the opportunity to charge at Lu Ming. Old Tai set a small target. First carat remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh, chapter 2558. X to the power of 8 carat 1 Z carat 0 degrees M translator. Naibo Studio editor. Naibo Studio, the foreign tribe's divine ancestor, used all his strength to break free from the ancestral Gragon's obstruction and charged at Lu Ming. Boom! The divine ancestor of the foreign tribe threw a punch. A golden fist crossed the boundless void and blasted toward Lu Ming with an extremely domineering aura. Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. The great desolation spear vibrated and thrust out. As soon as the spear was thrust out, the foreign tribe's divine ancestors' fist arrived and clashed with Lu Ming's spear light. A deafening explosion resounded as the great desolation spear vibrated continuously. A terrifying force surged and forced Lu Ming to take a few steps back. Divine weapon! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The foreign tribe's divine ancestor was wearing a pair of golden gloves. It was obvious that the gloves were divine weapons that were specially used by martial gods. They were extremely powerful. The divine ancestor Sha Xian's divine weapon had exploded, but the foreign tribe's divine ancestor still had his divine weapon. Therefore, his battle strength was slightly stronger than the divine ancestor Sha Xian when he was burning his divine force. Die! The foreign tribe's divine ancestor roared. His fists were like two golden suns as they blasted at Lu Ming. Emoku, I'm your opponent. The ancestral Gragon had arrived. How could he allow the foreign tribe's divine ancestor to attack Lu Ming? He lashed out with his dragon claws and fought against the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. At the same time, a dragon horn floated above the ancestral Gragon's head. It slashed out continuously like a battle saber. It was also a divine weapon. The ancestral Gragon's battle strength was on par with the foreign tribe's divine ancestor. He could not afford to be careless. He had to fight the ancestral Gragon with all his strength. Boom! Boom! The foreign tribe's divine ancestor exchanged a few blows with the ancestral Gragon. Meanwhile, Lu Ming took the opportunity to continue refining the divine ancestor Sha Xian. The divine ancestor Sha Xian continued to unleash his attacks, trying to break free from Lu Ming's obstruction. Emoku, save me, save me. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian roared. The outsider's sacred ancestor's face was as cold as ice as he madly exchanged a few moves with the ancestral dragon. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly changed his stance, taking a hit from the ancestral dragon as he shot toward Lu Ming. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the alien race's holy ancestor closed in on Lu Ming and threw hundreds of punches at him. Lu Ming brandished his great, desolate spear to block. After several hundred clashes, the strength of the sacred ancestor was indeed shocking. Lu Ming had to fend off the sacred ancestor. Thus, he did not have the energy to refine sacred ancestor Sha Xian. Thus, the sacred ancestor Sha Xian managed to escape. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian fled and met up with the other race's saint ancestors. Let's go back first. The outsider race's sacred ancestor said. Right now, they were at a complete disadvantage. They could only retreat first before making further plans. You want to leave? Stay. The ancestral dragon charged forward, his dragon horn like a heavenly blade that slashed down at the outsider's sacred ancestor. Facing the ancestral dragon's attack, the outsider's sacred ancestor had no choice but to focus. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming brandished his long spear and charged forward. Dazzling spear lights shrouded the sacred ancestor and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian. Saint Ancestor Sha Xian's battle strength had weakened and was no longer a match for Lu Ming. He could only barely hold on with the help of the sacred ancestor. At this moment, the sacred ancestor had to face the ancestral dragon and fend off Lu Ming's attacks. He was at a disadvantage. Battle character art. During the battle, Lu Ming constantly activated the battle character art in an attempt to double his battle strength. After exchanging dozens of blows, the sacred ancestor and Saint Ancestor Sha Xian were forced to retreat. Boom! Suddenly, Lu Ming's body exploded. The double battle strength of the battle character art was activated, and Lu Ming's battle strength skyrocketed. Whoosh! A spear light pierced towards the sacred ancestor. The sacred ancestor hurriedly raised his fist to block it. Boom! This time, The sacred ancestor was sent flying by Lu Ming. His body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This battle's strength. How is this possible? The sacred ancestor exclaimed in his heart. This was unbelievable. At this point in the battle, Lu Ming was still able to unleash even more battle strength. Furthermore, it had increased tremendously, completely suppressing the sacred ancestor. Once the sacred ancestor retreated, Saint Ancestor Sha Xan was exposed. Kill! Lu Ming roared. The great baron's spear turned into a pillar and smashed toward Saint Ancestor Sha Xan. Sacred Ancestor Sha Xan turned into a sea of blood and rolled wildly. He wanted to evade, but was unable to do so. At this moment, Lu Ming had activated the battle word essence to double his combat strength. He was extremely powerful. When the great baron's spear pressed down, the sea of blood, transformed by sacred ancestor Sha Xan, was directly split into two halves. A terrifying destructive force burst forth from the great desolation spear. The sea of blood formed by sacred ancestor Sha Xan began to crack and shatter, turning into tiny pieces. Refine. Then Lu Ming unleashed his sovereign power and shrouded the small pieces of the sea of blood. Then he started to refine them. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Green smoke filled the air. The sea of blood formed by Saint Ancestor Sha Xan was being refined at an extremely fast speed. Emoku, save me. Save me. Saint Ancestor Sha Xan was still crying for help. Sha Xan, go in peace. Emoku can't save you. Ancestral Gragon said coldly and charged towards the sacred ancestor. At this moment, the sacred ancestor's face was gloomy. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. He didn't want to fight with Ancestral Gragon. Instead, he dashed towards the other side. That was the direction of Tai Ching's sky domain. Not good. Ancestral Gragon seemed to have thought of something. His face changed drastically as he chased after the sacred ancestor. Lu Ming, go after him. Don't let Mo reach Tai Ching's sky domain. Ancestral Gragon's anxious voice could be heard. Kill! Lu Ming waved his hands. Countless spear radiances appeared in the air and charged towards the remaining sea of blood. No! Saint Ancestor Sha Xan roared. Then countless spear radiances flew down and tore the sea of blood apart. Then the sea of blood dissipated under the sovereign power. In an instant, Saint Ancestor Sha Xan had completely disappeared. Not a trace of him was left. This time, Saint Ancestor Sha Xan had completely died. There was no chance for him to come back to life. A martial god had been killed by Lu Ming. After killing Saint Ancestor Sha Xan, Lu Ming increased his speed to the maximum and chased after Ancestral Gragon and the sacred ancestor. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. However, the sacred ancestor had already reached Tai Ching's sky domain and arrived at the lair of Zulong. Mo Ku! Ancestral Gragon roared in anger. He opened his mouth and spat out a destructive light beam towards the sacred ancestor. However, there was only madness in the sacred ancestor's eyes. He ignored Ancestral Gragon's attack and threw out a punch. The terrifying power shattered the space within a radius of tens of millions of miles. Through the space, one could clearly see the appearance of a small world. This small world was the lair of Zulong. The sacred ancestor's terrifying punch landed on the lair of Zulong. Like a balloon, the lair of Zulong was blown up by the sacred ancestor's punch. After the lair of Zulong was blown up, the void was suddenly filled with dazzling golden light. From afar, Lu Ming could see a huge and boundless talisman seal covering the sky. That's Lu Ming's pupils shrank. He was very surprised. He had never thought that there would be such a huge seal behind the lair of Zulong. The heaven-suppressing seal. Ancestral Gragon, you're dreaming of sealing the sky. Today, I'll tear the seal apart and let all of you die with me. The sacred ancestor roared crazily. His whole body seemed to be burning. He turned into a divine sword and rushed towards the seal. Let's set a small target first. Remember new 8th Chinese network. Oh, chapter 2559. Damn it. Ancestral Gragon's expression changed. He controlled the dragon horn and slashed it at the foreign race's divine ancestor. At the same time he roared, "Lu Ming, quick, stop him!" Ancestral Gragon's voice was filled with panic, unable to remain calm. Although Lu Ming was confused, he knew that the golden seal was of great importance. Otherwise, Ancestral Gragon wouldn't have lost his composure. Lu Ming pushed his speed to the limit. At the same time, he used all his strength to throw out the great barren spear. Whoosh! Now that Lu Ming had doubled his combat strength, he was extremely powerful. He threw out the great barren spear, and it turned into a bolt of lightning. In a flash, it charged toward the divine ancestor. However, the foreign race's divine ancestor didn't care about Ancestral Gragon's and Lu Ming's attacks. He only had eyes for the golden seal. Boom! The foreign race's divine ancestor slashed at the golden seal like a sword. The golden seal shook violently and burst out with a bright light. Rip! Like a piece of cloth being torn apart, a huge hole was torn in the golden seal. At this time, Ancestral Gragon and Lu Ming's attacks arrived. Poof! Poof! The dragon horn controlled by Ancestral Gragon slashed the foreign race's divine ancestor's back, almost splitting him in half. At the same time, Lu Ming's great barren spear also pierced the foreign race's divine ancestor's back. The foreign race's divine ancestor was severely injured. His aura withered, and he became extremely weak. However, his face was filled with madness. Ha ha ha! The heaven-suppressing seal has been torn. The experts of the outside world are coming. Ancestral Gragon, what's the use of sealing the sky? You're still going to die. Even if I die, you'll die with me. Ha ha ha! The foreign race's divine ancestor laughed maniacally. He didn't hide his voice at all, and it spread throughout the heaven domain. Sinkhole battlefield, 2-world city battlefield. Upon hearing this voice, everyone's expression changed. Their hearts trembled violently, especially those from the evil god tribe. Their faces were pale. It was obvious that the foreign race's divine ancestor had been defeated. How could this be? The evil god tribe members found it hard to believe and accept. If the foreign race's divine ancestor was defeated, then they were doomed. Retreat, retreat! In an instant, the morale of the evil god tribe members was gone, and they retreated frantically. Kill the people of the Heaven Domain's army. They didn't understand what the foreign race's divine ancestor meant, but they knew that the foreign race's divine ancestor had been defeated. Their morale boosted. They chased after the foreign race's Gragon. "Mo, you're crazy!" the ancestral dragon roared and charged toward the outsider's sacred ancestor. "I'm crazy. The ones who are crazy are you and that old bastard Jinyu. You guys are stubborn and overestimating yourselves. He's is. Twos." He was going all out. When he saw that Lu Ming's combat strength had skyrocketed and that Saint Ancestor Sha Exan had been killed, he knew that he would not be able to survive. If Lu Ming and the ancestral Gragon joined forces, he would definitely die. Therefore, he attacked the golden talisman frantically. Gragons to S's. S with the Gragon. S. Mingzes. Ancestral Gragon stopped him. At the same time, Lu Ming arrived and attacked the foreign race's divine ancestor. The foreign race's divine ancestor was severely injured by the two of them. He was no match for them. After a few moves, Lu Ming punched through the body of the foreign race's divine ancestor. Ancestral Gragon's claws tore it apart. "Ancestral Gragon, I'll wait for you below." The foreign race's divine ancestor laughed. Ancestral Gragon controlled the dragon horn to split his head into two, destroying his body and soul. Both the foreign race's divine ancestor and divine ancestor Sha'Xan were dead. It was a complete victory. However, Ancestral Gragon didn't look happy at all. Instead, he looked dejected. "Sigh, Looking at the torn golden seal, Ancestral Gragon let out a long sigh filled with helplessness. Senior, this is... Lu Ming had many doubts in his heart and was about to ask. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying aura was emitted from the crack in the golden talisman. Even with Lu Ming's current cultivation level, he was scared witless and could not resist this aura. Ancestral Gragon and Lu Ming retreated quickly. What's that? At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes widened in shock. There were two balls of light behind the tear. They seemed to be a pair of eyes. They were dazzling and terrifying. Lu Ming's heart raced when he saw the two balls of light. It was as if he was an ant facing an ancient beast. We've been discovered. A disaster is coming. Ancestral Gragon sighed. However, the two balls of light flickered a few times and disappeared. Senior, what's that? Lu Ming asked. They're powerful beings outside. They have their eyes on this place. However, they can't come in for the time being. Let's go and eliminate the rest of the evil god tribe first, Ancestral Gragon said. Okay, Lu Ming nodded. Although he was curious, he wasn't in a hurry. He took a step forward and charged toward the battlefield of Two World City. As for Ancestral Gragon, he headed toward the Ultimate Ruins battlefield. At this moment, the evil god tribe's heaven-crushing army was almost completely wiped out by Xian Yinqing and Xian Yinjuan. 100,000 experts had fallen. The evil god tribe was completely one-sided. They knew that the foreign race's divine ancestor was finished. How could they still have the courage to fight? Not only were the ordinary experts fleeing, but even the heavenly emperors and demigods were fleeing. Number 1, you fled so quickly. If you have the ability, let's fight to the death. The chaotic Tharch chased closely behind the number 1 king. The number 1 king's face was gloomy. He didn't say a word and frantically tore through space to escape. The other foreign race demigods were the same. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black sword light flashed. Not far away, a foreign race demigod was killed. Then a figure appeared. It was Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinqing's gaze was cold as he looked at the number 1 king. The number 1 king's face was pale. Xian Yinqing's combat strength was too strong. He was no match for him. If he was targeted, only death would await him. Chaotic Tharch, if you want to die, let's die together. Suddenly, a ferocious expression appeared on the number 1 king's face. Instead of running away, he charged toward the chaotic Tharch. Terrifying energy, fluctuations erupted from his body. Self-destruct. The chaotic Tharka's expression changed drastically. Clearly, the number 1 king knew that he couldn't escape, so he might as well throw caution to the wind and drag the chaotic Tharch down with him. His strength was about the same as the chaotic Tharka's. If he suddenly chose to self-destruct, the chaotic Tharch would most likely die. The chaotic Tharch frantically retreated, but he couldn't retreat at all. Right at this moment, a purplish golden hand suddenly appeared and grabbed toward the number 1 king tier. The number 1 king roared. Before he could self-destruct, the purple gold hand grabbed him and squeezed. The number 1 king died on the spot. Then a figure flashed. Lu Ming appeared. Is this the combat strength of a martial god? The chaotic Tharch was shocked. The number 1 king, who was no weaker than him, self-destructed with all his strength. However, he couldn't even self-destruct in the hands of Lu Ming. He was crushed to death like an ant. Chapter 2560. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing exchanged a glance, smiled slightly, and then tore through the void and left respectively. Run, run, run. In front, a few foreign race old kings were frantically fleeing, but in front of them, a figure suddenly appeared. It's him! All of the foreign monarchs' expressions changed drastically at the sight of this figure. This figure was naturally Lu Ming. Since Lu Ming was here, it meant that the divine ancestor of the other tribes was in grave danger. Everyone, I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming said coldly and then waved his hand. Rays of spear light burst forth. several foreign race old kings wanted to escape, but in front of Lu Ming, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Uft, uft, uft. Several old kings were directly pierced through by Lu Ming's spear light, dying on the spot. After killing a few foreign race old kings, Lu Ming did not stop at all and directly tore through the void and left. He specialized in hunting foreign race powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm. Because powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm could directly tear through the void and travel through different worlds. However, in Lu Ming's hands, none of these people could escape. Lu Ming constantly shuttled through the void, hunting down foreign race powerhouses above the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm. As a result, the experts of the Heaven realm were freed up and joined the Heaven realm's army to chase after the foreign race army. It was a completely one-sided situation. After the Heaven realm's peak powerhouses and demigod-level powerhouses joined the battlefield, it became a complete massacre. A large number of foreign race heavenly emperors, great emperors, true emperors, void emperors, and quasi-emperors were slaughtered. This massacre lasted for several days. Almost all the foreign race powerhouses were slaughtered, and almost none of them escaped back to the evil god realm. A great victory, a true great victory. After that, the demigods and peak heavenly emperors of the Heaven realm directly killed their way to the evil god race, flattening the 10 great capital cities and sacred mountains of the evil god realm, slaughtering all the powerhouses above the martial emperor realm. Facing the evil god race, no one was lenient, because on both sides either you die or I die. Victory, we won! Ha ha ha! Cheers could be heard everywhere in the Heaven realm. Countless people were extremely excited. He had finally won. For countless years, the evil god race had been a huge rock that pressed down on the hearts of countless people in the heavenly realm. It was as if a blade was hanging over everyone's heads, ready to chop down at any moment. The pressure made it hard for many people to breathe. But now, the evil god race that had suppressed the Heaven realm for countless years had been defeated by them. All their experts had been killed. From now on, the Heaven realm would no longer have any external enemies. Naturally, they were very excited. Lu Ming did not participate in the battle that followed. He returned to the lair of Zulong. Ancestral Gragon had already arrived. He had his hands behind his back as he looked at the golden seal and the ferocious crack. His expression was extremely ugly. Senior, Lu Ming cupped his fists. He's here. Ancestral Gragon spoke with a desolate voice, as if he had aged a lot in an instant. I know you have a lot of questions. Originally, I didn't want to tell you about this, but now I have no choice. I'll gather everyone here and tell you all the details of this matter. Ancestral Dragon said. Lu Ming nodded. Then Ancestral Gragon took out a big drum and suddenly hit it. Dong! 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 The war drum vibrated, and the roaring sound spread out at a terrifying speed. The entire Taiching sky domain could hear it. It could even spread to other heavenly domains. In the Heaven realm, countless people were celebrating, but after hearing the war drum, everyone's expression changed drastically. What's going on? This is a war drum. It's so urgent. It's only rung when there's an extreme crisis. Who rung the war drum? This is the Ancestral Gragon war drum. Only Senior Ancestral Gragon can sound it. What's going on? At this moment, the Heaven realm was in an uproar. Didn't they win a great victory? Why would Ancestral Gragon sound this war drum? Could it be that there was another crisis in the Heaven realm? The previous excitement disappeared without a trace. Everyone's heart was covered with a layer of shadow. Countless people flew towards the lair of Zulong. Moreover, the news spread rapidly. The experts struggling in the evil god realm also heard the news and rushed to the lair of Zulong. Not long after, the void near the lair of Zulong flashed, and Xian Yanqing and Xian Yinjuan appeared. They glanced at the golden seal, and their eyes flashed. They seemed to understand something. After that, more and more people arrived. Greetings, martial god. Everyone came forward to greet Lu Ming and Ancestral Gragon. Lu Ming had fully demonstrated the combat strength of a martial god. They naturally regarded Lu Ming as a martial god and were respectful. Lu Ming and ancestral Gragon nodded and did not say much. As time passed, more and more creatures gathered near the lair of Zulong. A few days later, this place was densely packed with countless Heaven Realm experts. The strongest group of people in the Heaven Realm were almost all present. Almost everyone is here. Ancestral Gragon glanced at the crowd and said, "Today I have something to tell you. I didn't want to say these things at first." No one spoke at the scene, waiting for Ancestral Gragon to continue. "The foreign tribe Divine Ancestor Shah Exan is dead," Ancestral Gragon said. "He's really dead." Most people in the Heaven Realm were ecstatic. They were just guessing before. But now that Ancestral Gragon confirmed it, they finally felt relieved. However, some people did not show any joy because they could see that there was no joy on Ancestral Gragon's face. Instead, he looked solemn. Ancestral Gragon waved his hand and the scene quieted down. "Let me tell you, although we have defeated the foreign tribe, a greater crisis is coming soon." Ancestral Gragon continued. "What?" As soon as Ancestral Gragon said this, most people were shocked and puzzled. A greater crisis? Since the foreign tribe had been defeated, how could there be a greater crisis? Could it be? Many people looked at the golden seal and the crack. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying aura came from the crack again. The aura was indescribably terrifying. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all wanted to kneel down. Then, 2 balls of light appeared and flickered nonstop. After a while, they left. Gulp! Gulp! Many people kept swallowing their saliva, and their expressions were very solemn. They guessed that the crisis that Ancestral Gragon mentioned might come from there. However, what was behind the golden seal? Why was there such a terrifying aura that was several times stronger than Ancestral Gragon's? Was there an existence stronger than the martial god in the world? Many people were puzzled. Do you know why the evil god tribe attacked the Heaven Realm and why they wanted to destroy it? Ancestral Gragon continued. Many people's eyes flickered, including Lu Ming. Lu Ming had always been puzzled by this question. Why did the evil god tribe have to attack the Heaven Realm and destroy it? Wasn't it good for both sides to get along peacefully? Even if they were fighting for resources, they shouldn't have gone to war.